I know we don't have everyone here yet, but we will be starting shortly. So if everyone can help in getting people into the room and to their seats, thanks. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you've had a very good but rushed lunch. We're now going to start with the remaining agenda items, knowing that we are very far behind on the schedule. So, colleagues, I would now like to turn to item 8BI of the TEC 28 agenda and item 5.1 of the CTCN Advisory Board agenda. I would like to recall that as per the joint work program of the technology mechanism, the TEC and CTCN agreed on exploring the role of distributed ledgers and green technology databases. During our last joint session in Bonn in September 2023, the CTCN Secretariat presented a draft concept note on green technology databases and distributed ledgers, and we requested it to be reviewed by the Joint Task Force on Digitalization. We will listen now about the outcomes of this task force, and I will ask the CTCN Secretariat to update us on this work. Dear Rajiv, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Next slide, please. Just as a background, and to reiterate what the chair, the TEC chair has just mentioned, at the 22nd AB, the draft concept notes on green technology databases and distributed ledgers, which included an overview of WIPO database for green technology and the potential of distributed technology ledgers for clean energy and other applications were presented. The TEC and the CTCN Advisory Board had agreed to a further revision of the two concept notes on green technology databases and distributed ledgers for consideration, and invited WIPO, also had asked the Secretariat to invite WIPO to come and make a presentation on the green technology database. A joint task force, which comprises of 14 members of the TEC and the CTCN Advisory Board, was created, and which met on the 8th of February. 6 task force members were present during the meeting. The secretariats presented the progress on revision of the concept notes and also some of the barriers and the bottlenecks on distributed ledger to the task force members. As a part of the, next slide, yeah, this, as a part of an in-house exercise, the secretariat tried to identify similar databases which do exist, which are similar in nature with regards to the various technologies. The Secretariat was able to identify seven databases which exist. Some of these databases are national government database, and some others are by international agencies like OECD, Asian Development Bank, etc. The Secretariat, for each of the database, the Secretariat also conducted a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat analysis, and kind of pros and cons for each of the database. Most of the databases, they are open to public, like the ETP Clean database, which is hosted by International Energy Agency. It's an open database, but it focuses on energy technologies in the 5 sectors like building, industry, transport, carbon dioxide management, and energy transformation. And it also means it was last updated in, very recently, and there are 551 technologies. Similarly, the OECD patent statistics in environmental related technologies, it is again open to public, and it has a database in 7 categories on technologies related to building, technologies related to energy generation, transmission and distribution, carbon capture, storage and sequestration, or disposal of greenhouse gases, environmental management, mitigation technologies related to the transport sector, mitigation technologies in the production of processing of goods, and mitigation technologies related to wastewater treatment and waste management. So this database is also free and to use. There is also existing a technology database which is hosted by the Asian Development Bank. And again, it is open to public, but it focuses on 6 categories: agriculture, coastal resources, human health, transportation, water resources, and disaster management. But it's not a very big database. It just focuses on 41 technologies, and it's an old database which has not been updated. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Yep. There's also a database which is maintained, a technology database which is maintained by Solar Impulse Foundation. It's open to public, and it has got 9 categories like buildings, industry, energy, waste and pollution, water, food and agriculture, and infrastructure and mobility and freight. It provides more than 1,500 solutions, and it's quite recently updated in January 2024. Next slide. There is another database, but this is a national database of green technologies, which is hosted by NIGT, National Institute of Green Technology, Korea. It is open to public, and it is focusing on 7 categories: energy, water, farming, pollution, transportation, products, material and processes, buildings, and construction. Next slide. There is a green technology bank, which also is a kind of a database. It is hosted by the government of China. The links are there, and it also focuses on 5 green technologies related to environment quality, resource utilization, energy utilization, life, health, ecology, and safety. Then another national database which we were able to access and which is available in public domain is the green technology database. It is hosted by the Superior Council of Scientific Research of Spain, government of Spain, and it also have green technologies which are patented and a kind of patent analysis in 8 categories. Our analysis from this was discussed during the task force meeting, and our conclusion from these databases was that similar database like exists, which is in WIPO, which has equal number of technologies, if not more, and which are in public domain. And we have colleagues from World Intellectual Property Organization here who are going to make a presentation on their database. On their database, and as presented in the paper, there is a strong linkage between the CTCN knowledge management system and the WIPO green database, and there is a potential for active collaboration and a linkage between the 2 systems. On distributed ledgers, we analyze the institutions which are present in our network, in the CTCN network, and also which are globally available, those who are working on distributed ledger. The CTCN had earlier engaged with Blockchain Climate Institute for capacity building of the NDEs, which was quite very successful, and the NDEs received information and knowledge about application of blockchain technologies. UNEP has also produced a publication on blockchain for sustainable energy and climate in the global south, use cases and opportunities, and this was also mentioned in the previous paper which was presented, but the link to this report is also here. Of late, CTCN has received requests for technical assistance on application of distributed ledger or blockchain technologies from Thailand, Kenya, Burundi, Cote d'Ivoire, and a number of other countries. what strange thing we found was that there is an uncanny resemblance in all the technical assistance which we have received. Therefore, it also points out that if we go and move in this direction, it has the potential of combining and converting it into a multi-country request. CTCN is in the process of supporting one such request, and this would be from the resources of the Adaptation Fund program, and it is on parametric insurance in the agriculture sectors. The lessons which would be drawn from this technical assistance would be shared with the board. The secretariats, it was also an opinion which was coming out from the task force meeting that the secretariats needs more time to dive deep into this topic with some additional resource implications for creating practical guidance to the NDEs. Means this is just an estimated figure. Figure for the future. But what also came out is that there are various task forces which are working on number of topics which are related to digitalization. There is an activity group on digitalization which is working on AI for climate action. Distributed ledger is also considered to be one of the digital technologies. It would be to have a kind of a holistic approach to the issues. There was some discussion in the task force whether it would be prudent to merge all the task forces and activity group on one topic on digitalization, and that particular group can start going and diving deeper into each of the respective topics as and when the need arises. That is the end of my presentation, but I would also request the chair to invite colleagues from WIPO to make a presentation.
Thank you, Rajiv, for the presentation, and we definitely welcome the work undertaken by the Task Force on Digitalization. Before I give the floor to WIPO, now that we have almost all members in the room, just wanted to go over the agenda items that we are going to cover before we conclude today. So right now we're on 5.1, digitalization, which will be followed by 5.3, gender and technology, followed by 5.4, resource mobilization, followed by 6, monitoring and evaluation, followed by the date and venue, and then other matters, and after that we'll have the closing. We do have a hard stop at 6 p.m., so right now we are not on track for a coffee break, so we will not be having a coffee break, but there is coffee available behind everyone. But if we do get a bit more on track, and I implore everyone to be as effective as possible, we will let you know if we have time, even if it's 10 minutes. But with that, I will now give the floor to Mr. Peter Oxen from WIPO, who will share with us the WIPO Green Technology Database. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will, in the interest of time, do this relatively quick. What I want to do here is to show an example of one of these databases that are out there, with the idea of how this can be a tool. We all know that there are many technologies out there, there are many solutions available, and there are also some tools available to find these solutions. And our database and our work, what we do, is part of these tools. And in the end of this short presentation, I will also sketch out some of the ways that we can link this closer to the work of CTCN and the technology mechanism, for the benefit of the NDEs and the countries who are struggling with climate change. So, and we're a very small part of WIPO called WIPO Green, and basically what we do is to try to show how innovation and technology can be part of solutions to climate change and other environmental issues like food security and so on. we've done this for about 10 years. We're the same age as CTCN actually, and basically what we do is do matchmaking. We try to find the needs and the problems, and then we find the solution that corresponds to it. And as part of this work, our database is a technical backbone. This is where we store everything we find in terms of needs, but also in terms of technologies, and we have a number of functions in there to help us on that work. There was, at the last board meeting, presented a concept note, I believe, and that provides a lot of details on the database and what it can do, so I can refer to that if you want to look closer into what it can do. The database has been around ever since the beginning of WIPO Green 10 years ago, but we completely rebuilt it 3 years ago and has built in a number of new solutions or new features in it. So what our interest in this is this is quite a lot of work to build such a database, and not least of maintaining it. There's always new security threats coming up, and AI comes up with new possibilities, so it's a continuing developing work. And we want it to be used as widely as possible because, again, our aim is to show that technology and innovation are part of the solutions. By doing this, then we also support green technology development, we support the innovation ecosystem, and we support technology transfer. So next slide, please. So here are some pointers to some of the major characteristics of the work that we do on this database. So it's a free UN-based public database. There are no access restrictions whatsoever. It's inclusive and accessible. So accessible means that it's relatively simple to navigate. We have various ways that people can find their way through it, but it's also available in 164 languages using machine translation. This is a new development, and this is the first step towards having a more fully multi-language support for the database. For the time being, it's machine translation, but it actually works. It's actually pretty cool when you just click on a button and everything changes into a weird language. So try it out. It's kind of fun. We also proud ourselves of being inclusive. So we're part of the UN. So for us, it's important that many databases out there, they focus on the best solutions, the most efficient, the most bankable, the most best investments, and so on. We do not have such concerns, really. What we are looking for is a broad diversity of technology. And the reason behind that is that what you need as terms of a solution to an environmental challenge in Switzerland, for example, may not be the same that you need in Burkina Faso and the other way around. Meaning that we also need to have solutions in there that are not the most advanced, not the most fancy, they're not necessarily the most efficient either, they may not be the best solutions overall, but it may be exactly what you need in a specific context with a lot of different barriers. So that's why it's important for us that it is an inclusive database, and that means also that it's open to the public for upload. We have around 130, almost 130,000 technologies in there, but a lot of them are patents. But the most important things we have are around 4,000 user uploads, and that's uploads by companies themselves. And there are no requirements that they have to have a patent or any other intellectual property rights secured. They're welcome to upload that as part of the information, but it's not a requirement at all. Then we have built in a various number of AI-based search functions. I'll go through a few of them here. So basically, what you as a user, a technology owner, or somebody who is looking for a solution, they just register. There are no fees, and then they can upload their solution to the database. So it therefore also has a very strong private sector engagement. In WIPO, we work closely with the private sector in various aspects, and that is also what we are showing here. Again, many of the technologies, they come from the private sector, or they are being transmitted through the private sector, and that's also what we want to show. And then also we have, WIPO is a relatively big organization, so we have IT and cloud support from within WIPO, and all of the work is financed fully by WIPO. Next slide, please. So this is basically what it looks like. Very simple keyword search. Next slide, please. And then when you search, you will have a number of filters, and you can see them here, which you can specify your search for what you're looking for. Next slide, please. We also have developed a unique search function that is using AI. So basically, if you have a project or a complex need somewhere, you don't necessarily have to use keywords and try to catch it. You can upload or you can copy in a full description of your project or your need, or you can even upload a document or even point to a website, and then our AI will analyze what is in this text. And next slide, please. And then extract the keywords, present them to you, and you can choose them whether they're good or not. And then next slide, please. And then it launches search with these keywords that was extracted. So again, it's a matter of increasing the accessibility for projects or communities or farmers or whatever it is who doesn't necessarily knows what the right keywords are. So you can just use a long text instead. Next one, please. So this is what technology looks like in the database. And if you notice to the left-hand side in the bottom, there are two links there. And next slide, please. If you click on the website, then you will get directly to the website of the company or the technology that is here. And the next slide, please. You can also then write an email directly to this company to get in contact with them for whatever you want to do. So it can be used both to find a very specific technology with a specific company, and it can be used as an inspiration to knowing that saying, oh, this company, they are actually doing something interesting. It's not in my region, but now I know it's on the market, so I can look for something in my local place. So by showing what is there, we hope to help also to get it further out there. Next slide, please. You can also upload needs, and this is something that is very important to us. So if somebody is looking for a solution, of course they can search in the database, but they can also upload a description of it. And again, that text will be analyzed by our AI and will be matched against what we have in our database. So immediately when you upload something, you will receive an email with a summary of what the database has found that actually fits to the description of your need. And when you are an uploader, you will always be able to go in and then see what happened to your need, who opened it, who looked at it, and so on, and see what kind of matches are coming up. And you can also set up email alerts for new technologies coming in and all that. Next up, the next one, please. Then we have developed collections in the database, and this is a very versatile tool where we can go in and specify a number of, or a set of sub-technologies in the database. So we use that for example, special areas. You can see there's one on green plastic, there's one on textiles, sustainable textiles, where we look specifically what we have in the database and collect that in one collection. But we also use them from our projects, and you can see there's one, for example, Uruguay livestock and Tajikistan water. That's from two of our acceleration projects where we run it. But then we also have a special collection for the Green Technology Book, and I hope that you have heard about it. It's this fantastic thing here made in partnership with TEC-CTCN. And the database is a backbone for that work also. So next slide, please. And we have therefore created a special collection in the database where we have all the technologies from the book, but many more also. So we have around 600 or something technologies in there, while in the book here we can only have room for about 250 or something. And that's again to make the Green Technology Book becoming an active matchmaking tool, where it's growing all the time and keeping ahead of what, or keeping up to date of what is happening in the technology field. Because anybody can upload their technology to the database, and when we see it's relevant for the Green Technology Book, we add it to that collection in there, so it's available. If you go to next slide, please. You can then see what it looks like in that collection for the Green Technology Book. This is specifically for the steel section that we included in the mitigation edition of the book that we launched here at COP28 in Dubai in December. Next slide, please. So I mentioned that there was around 125,000 patents in there. And I don't know how much you know about the patenting system, but one of the good things about it is that it forces the patent holder to make available detailed information about the invention, which can then be used under various restrictions or under no restrictions at all, depending on where you are in the world. Now, problem with patents is that they're not always easy to read, and you can't really see whether a patent is actually on the market. But it is a treasure trove on technical information and as inspiration. So we have, in order to overcome that, we have developed a special AI-based search function also. We call it patent to solution, which when you find a patent in the database that you think is interesting, or a technology that is in the form of a patent, well, then you can click on this search function and it will analyze the patent description and then launch the Google search looking for commercial pages. That means pages on the internet that corresponds to the technology that is described in this patent. So therefore, you can use it as an inspiration to see, okay, this is a great innovation, but can I actually find it somewhere? Next slide, please. So where does that bring us, and how can we use that to get it out to the countries? How can we use it in the work of CTCN and so on? And we have a few ideas that we have also developed together with CTCN here in how we can bring it forward, making this into an active tool. Of course, it's a matter of using this major needs and technology repository to show that when you want to look for where is there a need, where is there a technology that could fit into my needs, well, this is where you can go. Our ambition is to be a trusted green technology partner, and neutral, of course, in the way that we can show what is out there and actually show the way also to how to get it. So become it's an active tool for climate technology identification, and I believe that many of the NDEs and the countries are working this, that they will need these kind of tools to identify what is actually out there. So thereby we can integrate it into the CTCN knowledge management as a tool. And I should also mention that there's a UNEP DHI water match database that has been there for a while, that we expect to integrate in our database before the end of the year, because that database will not be continued. So we are taking that over, and that will give us an integration of some nice water-based technologies. Now, the way that this can be linked can be done in different ways. So one is to link from our database to CTCN, another links to link for CTCN to our database. We could make links in relation to the technology taxonomy. So if you want to find out more about a taxonomy, it takes you into examples in the database of what this looks like. It can link up to the technical, to the TAs that are being done in CTCN when they are in the need of inspiration for technologies. We can use it in a way that we have the technologies in the database, and CTCN has the TAs. So it's a kind of two different, as can see, aspects of the same problematics. We can also develop a tailored gateway for CTCN or the technology mechanism into the database, and that can be made in many forms. We have developers attached to the database working on full time, so that we can make these kind of things. But it's really a matter of how to integrate it and what kind of space you want. And then, of course, the other links is directly to the Green Technology book here, but also to our acceleration projects, which actually could also be of interest to the work of CTCN and the member countries in the way that we actually identify specific matches to real needs on the ground. So in order to promote this work, it can be used actively in the NDE's work as we see it. It can be used also to build capacity and awareness of what happens in technology, in green technology, and what is available. It can be a tool in the regional meetings also, a regional forum, to make the NDEs understand that these tools are actually available and accessible and free, of course.
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah. We are running very, very behind on time. So if you could just briefly move forward with the presentation.
Yes, but I'm also on the last slide, so that's all good then. So basically, there's a TNAs also, there's a work streams, there's guidelines around that, and we would very much like for the database also to be part of that. And then again, of course, there's a need uploads directly from countries and NDEs. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much for that. The CTCN Advisory Board Chair also asked me to remind colleagues that we are having the CTCN anniversary dinner tonight, and everyone is reception tonight, and everyone is invited to attend. So we need to efficiently end in order to have that reception. Now I would invite people to consider what was just presented and provide guidance. The floor is open to feedback or any questions for the presenters, and I again implore all to be very brief in their remarks. Ambrosio?
Thank you very much for the floor, Mr. Chair. I would like to start by appreciating the presentations made by the Secretariat and the presentation made by Peter on behalf of WIPO. We're very happy since the submission of WIPO to the TEC-Rolling Work Plan that this is becoming into fruition and becoming an increasing engagement within our organizations. I would like to start with, before going into the topics themselves, there is an issue in how this organized, in terms that there was a decision made at the past meeting regarding that what was expected to happen in this meeting was that new documents will be updated based on the comment made at the last meeting and be presented at this meeting. And this actually didn't happen. We don't have an updated concept notes. And I think, and this is really important, may be related to perhaps some sort of problem that needs a reflection. We ask the CTCN staff to update these documents. The CTCN staff is not a big staff. It's a small staff that has to deal with providing technical assistance requests for around 150 countries around the world. So I think we must acknowledge we probably never give a thought on this, but the moment we put this kind of policy drafting work into the CTCN, what we are doing is stressing a team that's already a bit stretched with a work that is not the nature of their work. So it's also not, because the nature of the work is providing training, providing technical assistance, capacity building, but not this kind of policy drafting. And I think I will ask the CTCN if they have a reflection on this regard. Of course, this doesn't mean that this should be given to the TEC, because the TEC at this moment cannot undertake new drafting on documents unless a new person is deployed to the TEC Secretariat, UNFCCC Secretariat supporting the TEC. So that's regarding the drafting of documents. Regardless, but this is specific to the work or coordinating the draft and updating this document, or hiring a consultant. But again, hiring a consultant by the it's also has a resource implication. Of course, the many things that can be done, not on that context, but in the context of Rajiv correctly presented in terms of the day-to-day operations of the CTCN and the work that they do with developing countries. So that's perfectly fine. So I'm talking more specifically at we might be not right in giving work that's policy drafting work to a CTCN Secretariat, but of course all the other collaborations that were presented in the context of what we are discussing in digitalization can go along. It's just a bit about the nature. This needs to be solved in a way, but because we have a pending mandate, you may say, because we have agreed that something will happen with this concept note and those not exist. So that's a point, but that I will leave it to the chairs to propose the way forward on this map that has not been yet fulfilled. Regarding on the content itself, I would like to recall one of the activities under the implementation key theme of the technology framework. And this is identifying and developing recommendation approaches, tools, and means as appropriate for the assessment of the technologies that are ready to transfer. And I think we must acknowledge that what we have been presented by WIPO is exactly that, tools and means for the assessment of technologies that are ready to transfer. This is extremely valuable because it helps us fulfill one of the activities envisioned in the technology framework of the Paris Agreement that provides overarching guidance to the technology mechanisms. And things that have just presented, I'm going to repeat questions that we have at the last session, but sadly at that session, we didn't have the opportunity to ask them themselves. So I think this is a good opportunity to ask that. Of course, there was a question about what other database existed. Rajiv presented a bit on that. There was a specific question about the geographical distributions of users and the distribution, including the regional distribution of technologies being consulted. So what is behind this question is, okay, which countries are actually at this moment using the database, and where are the technologies in the database coming from? Why? Because there is this idea of regional balance. It might be relevant for us to understand what is the overarching, the underlying dynamics of its use as we go into partnering between YPO and the technology mechanism in this regard. This might be relevant. Of course, I already asked of the geographical distribution of the technologies, also the users. You already explained that this allows for, in a way, third-party submission, and when I reviewed that a long time ago, I think even you can third parties can make their own collections. So you can serve different collections that actually belong to different types of entities. That was pretty nice. So this question a bit back to us. Will TEC-CTCN, this is a decision what we might consider. Will create an entry point or collection into the database, or foster network members or NDEs to create entry points or collections for diffusions of their own technologies, because a way countries can showcase their endogenous capacities, the endogenous developed technologies, is through using this database. I've heard a bit about possibility of integration with the CTCN technology database, and maybe that could be explained a bit further how this might be happen. So CTCN has some sort of technology database, and how that might be integrated with the work of Whitewood. That could be very interesting. More general, how this can be embedded into the work of the CTCN, but also the TEC in terms of the policy recommendation work. I understand this provides the technologies, but also potential providers, so it may be a way to contact experts or people that know about technologies. But those are reflections that might be relevant for the work going forward. The future plans for database, I think, are really important. We think on a long-term relationship between the technology mechanism of the UNFCCC and WebPU Green Database. What are the plans that WIPO has for the future for this database? I think that's also really important to consider moving forward. And also really important, how traditional knowledge is addressed in these databases. Usually, okay, I will hurry up. So I know WIPO has the IGC that deals with that type of content, but I will expect that there might be an answer to this question, and I will stop there. Thank you very much for remembering that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ambrosio. Pemi.
Thank you, Chair. I think Ambrosio took all the points. But just to emphasize some of the things that we raised. Firstly, let me appreciate the presentation that was made both by the Secretariat and I think WIPO. And just to ask in terms of how easy is it to access this AI tool, especially to vulnerable communities, I mean, where communities are still struggling with having infrastructure or not even having that technology, and how easy it is to access that, especially for developing countries. And the second question is on the patent holders. I mean, I heard Peter talk about, you know, how the patent holders and how they are not able to verify the correctness of the information. And then I also wanted to ask, does that not also infringe on the privacy of the information that is provided? As you rightly said, that most of this relies on personal data, which might lead to unauthorized access or misuse of sensitive information. And my other question is, and does that take into account ethical dilemmas? Thanks.
Thank you, Pemi. Ichiro.
Thank you. I'd like to comment on the point raised by Rajiv, that currently there are multiple working groups covering different digital technologies, but it may be more efficient to have streamline them into one group working on digitalization. I think colleagues may have different views on this point, but I'd like to support the idea of having one big group on digitalization that cover different digital technologies. I think there are two benefits of it. First, it will reduce the workload for Secretariat to coordinate those groups. And the other benefit is that it will facilitate integrated approach to digitalization. As Fred pointed out this morning, that technology should be deployed, should not deployed separately in isolation. It should be integrated to provide good, best solutions. So in that respect, I'd like to support the idea of integrating it into one large group. Thank you.
Thank you, Ichiro. Just to know, I have closed the list, so we'll have Erwin, followed by Stephen, followed by Ketavan, and then I'll let Sarah come in. Erwin.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to respond to some of the points that Ambrosio made, and I don't see this work on databases as policy work, and I don't see it as in any way deviating from the normal focus of the CTCN. The CTCN has a fairly broad mandate. It's been articulated in different decisions, but we've usually talked about the CTCN as having three core service areas: technical assistance, capacity building, and information management or knowledge sharing. And to me, and there's always been a significant focus of time and effort and money in maintaining the CTCN database as a core part of that information management knowledge sharing service area, and I see this fitting in perfectly with that. My only point here is that we really should make sure that we're paying due attention to what the CTCN has in its database, and I know the website was just almost completely restructured, and I don't have a full handle on the new structure of the website. I think it's still a little bit of a work in progress. But the CTCN often talked about having the world's largest or one of the world's largest sources of information on climate technology. So my main concern is that we make sure we're valuing the investment that we've made into maintaining the CTCN's database as we go through what I see as a very constructive exercise to think about how it's complementing these other databases that Rajiv described. And I will welcome the effort to find ways to increase that complementarity and either integrate or make sure that these databases are as mutually supportive and even connected to the extent possible, as we're considering apparently with WIPO. And then I just want to say I support Ichiro's suggestion. We've had a digitalization joint task force only focusing on what were originally described as the two joint digitalization activities, this database activity and the distributed ledger activity. But then we have a lot of other work going on in digitalization, some of which is described as joint activities, some of which is part of the common areas of work aspect of the joint work program on digitalization, including but not limited to AI. So to me, in terms of increasing the coherence of all these different activities, it would be quite efficient and I think more productive if we come out of here today agreeing that going forward we would have one joint task force on digitalization, and then certainly each body could still be free to have its own activity group or structure to focus down on the specific activities that each body is conducting under digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you to the CTCN and WIPO for their presentations. Very briefly, I also support continuing to work with WIPO on green tech databases. I think this is very promising work. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Ketavan.
Hello again. Thank you to the CTCN and WIPO for the presentation, and also support that idea what Stephen said. Most of the questions were asked by Ambrosio and also concerns by Penny. So I once again want to highlight the inclusivity and to ensure the inclusivity and usability of the database, as well as to really look into the geographical coverage of the users, of the innovators, etc. So really to look into the data to how it is there. I have two questions. First question, it's about the technologies, like what type of technologies are the most common technologies, and are there any areas of innovation that are underrepresented there? And the second question is more about the feedback. Do you collect feedback? And if yes, how do you collect feedback? Because I think it's also very important for the future development of the database. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly to Sarah.
Thank you so much for allowing me to take the floor. I'm Sarah Trerup from UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center, leading our work on technology and also on the Global Technology Needs Assessment project funded through the GEF. So first I would just like to express our appreciation for the collaboration both with the TEC and the CTCN that has been increasingly enhanced during recent years, of course on the technology needs assessment, but also on the climate technology progress reports. So coming to the database of discussion here, I would like to appreciate all the effort made by WIPO going into preparing and further extending this database. And from the viewpoint of the Global Technology Needs Assessment project, where we are currently supporting 17 countries, starting 17 additional countries, or supporting them in starting up their TNA process this year, we would appreciate to see how we can further enhance the collaboration on conveying this information contained in the database and linking that up with the work in countries where they are actually articulating their needs and how that corresponds to what you have in the database already and how countries can further benefit from it. So also happy to see the link with the Water Solutions database run currently by UNEP DHI. That would be a question, but you already answered that. So appreciate it very much and would like to engage further in how we can collaborate on conveying this information to countries for their TNAs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So due to, again, time constraints, I'm going to have to ask WIPO to bilaterally speak with people to provide the answers for the questions that have been asked. Regarding the work on this agenda item, I think we can move forward with the joint task force on digitalization, and we can allow this task force to factor in the comments and the feedback received from members, and come back later with a way forward. I don't see any objections, so we will move forward with the joint task force on digitalization. Now let us turn to the discussion on agenda 8B of the TEC agenda and the joint agenda item 5.3, Gender and Technology. The Technology Mechanism launched its Gender and Climate Technology Expert Roster at COP28. I would like to give the floor to the CTCN Secretariat to report on progress on the further development of the roster, including on a new platform for hosting the roster, initial user statistics, and upcoming communication and outreach activities. So over to the CTN Secretariat.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will briefly update on statistics after the launch of the Gender and Climate Technology roster. So we will have statistics, we will have also next steps today and how the roster was launched during COP. As some of you remember, we launched it virtually, but with some sites presentations during COP last year in November. We also distributed press release, news items, lots of social media posts. We also had a mention in the ISSD article from the Vice Chair of CTCN, mentioned in the roster of the launch. What we received so far is, and it's work in progress, we received 163 applications, and some of the applications they're duplicated because the system did not provide automatical reply to the applicant that the application was submitted. So some of the applicants submitted their applications twice, and we had to confirm manually that the application was approved or rejected and specify the reasons. So far, we approved 96 profiles, out of which we have 41 profiles in gender expertise and climate, climate technology 55 profiles, and intersection of gender, and climate technology 62. As for regions, we have 45 profiles covering Africa region, 33 profiles covering Asia, 19 Europe, Latin America and the Caribbean 19 profiles, Northern America 11, and Oceania 9 profiles. Then you search for experts. In the filter, you can select areas of expertise. So this is like a very brief snapshot of what area of expertise each expert submitted. So we have, in some cases, even like more than 100, because one applicant can submit a couple of areas of expertise. As for the next step, we plan to expand expert engagement. So we will try to do more target outreach. We will do educational webinars to spread the word on the platform, and we'll do more social media, of course. Then we'll try to foster collaboration to work with women and gender constituencies and our organizations which can support and do targeting outreach to the experts to engage them to apply. And as part of communication, specifically, we will try to showcase, based on already developed collaboration between the expert and an organization, what was done, how the collaboration been developed and progressed. So we'll try to do some social media stories and maybe website stories on that. With this, it's it. Thank you so much. I will pass the floor to our colleagues in Women and Gender Constituency, and they will present gender in technical TNAs.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, and thank you, chairs and co-chairs, for allowing us, me first as tech observer, and my colleague Valeria as a CTCN AB member, to make this presentation on gender in TNAs. Do we have the slide? Yeah. So I will just start to recall the the mandates, the objectives, and also what has been adopted and the documents adopted, and then pass the floor to Valeria for the current status and also to showcase published guidance on how to improve gender considerations in the TNA process. So regarding the COP mandate, just for parties here present, members and also members of the TEC and the CTCN AB member, the importance of this presentation is to concretely show you where we can make progress, and that you can also guide yourselves on COP decisions. So the COP 25 requests the CTCN and other constituting body to promote gender-responsive climate technologies, including indigenous knowledge and practices. Also, COP 28 reiterated its request to the TEC and the CTCN to continue mainstreaming gender considerations in their work. And we do appreciate a lot what has been done until now. So the TEC in 2019 developed a gender strategy, and we have seen that gender has been very strongly integrated into its work program. In the same line, the CTCN Advisory Board adopted a new, renewed or updated gender policy and action plan in 2020. Next slide, very quickly. The objectives for the TEC and the CTCN on the TEC side, really to mainstream gender consideration, to have more collaboration and engagement with gender experts, to monitor its progress and institutionalization of how the TEC is integrating gender, to organize events that have a strict 50-50 gender balance and substantively address gender, and also to have illustrative or provide illustrative examples of how mainstreaming gender can be applied to the TEC's rolling work plan context. So we've seen that applying case studies or providing concrete case studies has been done. On the CTCN, the objective of the gender policy is to address the need to increase women's equal participation in decision making related to climate technology. also to strengthen gender mainstreaming efforts in climate action by providing capacity building and knowledge to the CTCN Secretariat, board members, key stakeholders, network members, NDEs, of course, and the broader climate community, and to enhance capacity for data collection, measurement, and evaluation. And it's really important to see that there is a sort of accountability or at least monitoring and evaluation system in place. So the reporting on gender work and outcomes should be integrated into the joint annual report of the TEC and the CTCN. All technical assistants shall comply with the gender mainstreaming principles specified in the gender policy of the CTCN. And also network members, national designated entities, technology needs assessment teams, as consortium partners will be asked to comply with the gender policy and action plan in the implemented activities. So important for all of you to note that. I now give the floor to Valeria for a short presentation of the status.
Thank you, Anne. Next slide, please. So the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center in 2022 did a briefing note called Experience from Preparing Gender Responsive TNAs that presents and discusses key trends and insights regarding efforts to mainstream gender in the TNAs process and the role that climate technologies can play in ensuring gender responsive climate action. So the analysis conducted shows that of the 22 countries that have begun the TNA process between 2018 and 2022, 47% of them have integrated gender as a criterion in their multi-criteria analysis. For example, Liberia, Malawi, and Ukraine have set up gender-sensitive criteria to assess the scores of the selected technologies under the social benefits of technology criterion. In the TNA3 countries, 6 of the 22 countries have chosen to nominate a female TNA coordinator or assistant coordinator, and 6 selected a gender-balanced team of consultants, meaning that they count both the presence of men and women in their team. This share remains low, and efforts to reach a higher level of gender balance are needed. In the second part of the TNA process, the BAIF reports where countries assess what barriers hinder the development, deployment, and transfer of technologies. Disparities can be seen between sectors. Overall, 56% of the BAIF reports analyze mentioned gender with a roughly equal breakdown between adaptation and mitigation. Next slides, please. So as we can see in these graphs, on the mitigation side, the forestry sectors have a higher level of gender considerations, followed by the energy sector and the waste sectors. And it's like notable that transport doesn't have any gender analysis. So to ensure that men and women benefit equally from the actions set out in TNAs, and the gender inequalities in activities and outcomes are reduced or eliminated, gender differences need to be taken into account throughout the entire TNA process and its outcomes. And next slide, please. Next. So then TNA processes are also highly relevant in the context of NDCs, as countries are using TNA results as inputs to preparing their NDCs. So this often forms the technology-focused parts of countries' NDCs and feeds into the sectoral assessment. So there is like a checklist for gender-responsive TNAs, and the first step is to sector and technology prioritization, and then we need to identify and categorize technologies, make an assess gender in the background study, and conduct a gender analysis of technologies. We also need to assess technologies through MCA, so include a gender criterion to assess each technology. We need to make final decisions, ensure that gender-sensitive stakeholders' engagement in decision-making process, and take into account the gender analysis conducted to inform the final decision. And the second step is the barrier analysis and enabling frameworks. So then we need gender-related barriers or corresponding enabling frameworks to be identified for each of the technologies. And the third step is the technology action plans. So we need to indicate on how gender will be considered in the TAP, in the aim of it. We need to outline how TAP activities and actions will achieve gender outcomes. We also need to indicate how gender is accounted for in stakeholders for TAP implementation, and conduct a gender analysis for actions and activities. We also need to identify how capacity building will be gender responsive during TAP implementation, and conduct a gender analysis of budget lines and activities. We also need to management planning, report, and tracking the implementation status of TAPs. So there, next slide, that is the final one. So there, in the gender responsive operations and monitoring from TEC and CTCN, we know that the TEC has like gender integration in knowledge products, the panels with gender balance and gender sensitive communication. The CTCN has like training and support in the interaction of climate technology and gender barriers for AB members, NDEs, TNA teams, and other ministerial staff members. And the CTCN shall further increase the number of network members with specific gender, indigenous, and climate expertise. As an adjoint work, they have like we have like the gender and climate technology expert roster, and the gender indicators and targets in the MNE system. And next slide. So then this is just a case study that works as an example on how to include gender mainstreaming into the TNAs. So this is the Boom Group technology, and then prove that when they presented to MEM first, to MEM farmers, there was like really expensive for only like to apply or to access to this technology for a single man. So then they decided to integrate or include women's collectives and women farmers groups to uptake the technology. And then was like they proved that the collective ownership was a good solution for the uptake and the development of climate technologies. And this is like a good example of how the gender dimension is important for the like the adoption of technologies. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to the representatives of the Women and Gender constituency for the presentation. I now would like to open the floor for any discussions, any reflections from members and observers. I recognize Maria.
Thank you. Very briefly, Yongo welcomes the launch at COP28 of the Gender and Climate Technology Expert Roster. Closer. And of course, we congratulate the Secretariat and WCG for this important work. We see this as a great avenue to enhance the participation of young experts on gender and climate issues. And with this in mind, we would like to suggest the consideration of including not only gender disaggregated data on women, men, and gender non-conforming people participation in the roster, but also age group disaggregated data to support the consistent tracking of user statistics of the roster. This is very aligned with the M&E of joint activities, output 2, indicator 2.3, and the possibility of defining a specific target by 2027. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to Pedro.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the excellent presentations. I only have one question. What are the criteria that you use to approve or reject an application in the roster?
Thank you. Ambrosio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to propose some amendments how the gender roster is currently on the webpage. So right now it says technology mechanism is looking for expert on gender and looking for expert. I will add at the end on gender and climate change technology to engage. So it's specific about the content. And then in the next paragraph, I will amend by introducing, not deleting anything, but introducing new text in how it is described when it is invited to join. So it should say, the technology mechanism invites professionals in the fields of climate technology and gender to join its expert roster. We're looking forward to welcoming professionals specializing in gender and climate technology, including both female experts on climate change technology and both female and male experts on gender and climate change. This can encompass grassroots and indigenous gender experts, non-academic specialists, gender non-conforming activists, experts in gender intersectionality, and others. So I'm making amendments, not deleting anything. Why I'm making this amendment, and I will go into the substance of this change. What was agreed by the TEC and the CTCN under this activity was to develop and maintain a roster of experts on gender and climate change who can be called upon for various events workshops, and activities. So that's the primary use agreed so far. The roster will include both female experts on climate change technology and both female and male experts on gender and climate change, and will take into account geographical representation. The roster will be searchable by various categories: technology sector, geographical expertise, and gender expertise. So the emphasis on being very clear what this is about is, first, we're following our mandates. There was a mandate on what will be the content, and who will be part of the gender. Right now in the gender, because I review, you have people that declare no gender expertise, so just technology expertise, and are male. So the mandate that we have is very clear, making the distinction that is female climate expert in both male and female gender experts. So there's something that needs to be fixed, but my understanding that actually undermines the objective that this roster is supposed to serve, and the objective is aligned with the Gender Action Plan in the part about promoting the leadership of women and girls in science and technology. So this is about they should be, based upon the decision that's consistent with the Gender Action Plan, there should be no male expert on climate change in that roster. And also, this is about climate technology and gender expertise, and I found out, looking, that there were people that are not declaring technology expertise, not declaring gender expertise, formally at least, and they are still in the roster, so that should not happen. I reviewed the details, and if you look into the details, you can make the assessment, well, actually this person was a gender expert, but was declaring that was not an expert. So that's fixable in that case, but should be, there is a clearly defined scope on who needs to be accepted. I think that's a bit online with the question of Pedro, because I have the similar question: what is the criteria being used at this point? And then, and this, I think this is one of the most important question is how TEC and CTCN will use this. Of course, the mandate is about events, workshops, and activities. Of course, the activities can be not just an event, could be the TEC activities, that actually is the main body of work. So the question would be how CTCN plans to use this roster for the technical assistance requests or the capacity buildings, how this will be integrated, how this person will be part of a selection process so they can be considered in the technical assistance process, as for example, the gender experts on the technical assistance teams. That will make a lot of sense. So this is not just for display, but actual operational use. Then, in the case of the TEC, I think the question is, for the panels, we have a goal of strict gender bundles in all the panels of tech activities. Maybe on the when we look for consultants for some specific activities. But of course, overall, this should move to be used across the UNFCCC, not just the technology mechanism, even by parties. So I will be very keen to hear what is the ambition on the long term. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambrosio. I only have one request left, so I'll close the list with Christian.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the gender presentations. I just want to check that in the development of the roster, we prioritising recruitment of gender experts and technology experts from the different constituencies. And further to Ambrosio's point, once we start to access that roster to develop, to include them in roles within the CTCN and the TEC, will we also extend that broader constituencies to those roles? Basically, are SIDS, LDCs, developing countries going to get equally represented?
Okay, thank you. I think I'll hand over to the CTCN Secretariat to answer some of the questions that have been directed about the roster.
Thank you so much, Chair. So to start with criteria, the criteria was presented at the last AB. But if there is need, we can maybe reshare it with both members of TEC and CTCN advisory board, just to ensure that everyone reflected on the criteria and we following the approved criteria above both members. On the comments from Ambrosio, thank you so much. We will review the approved applications, which everyone can see on our website, and we'll try to amend it and fix it according to the mandate. So we'll ensure that we'll have only people with gender expertise, not without gender expertise at all. And when we have to ensure the balance, we try to build communication campaign to reach also seats and LDCs, so more experts would apply. Of course, it takes longer because there are many obstacles and challenges we face on the way, but we also work with women in gender constituencies, and in the plan we have more women's organizations to work with, so we will try to ensure the balance is there.
Just a minute. Yeah, there's a question. Yeah, there was a question with regards to how we are going, how we plan to use this gender roster. Definitely, as given in the mandate, we are going to use this roster when we are organizing meetings, workshops, training programs. One way it can be utilized is that we'll point out to this roster of experts to our various network members, so that when they put up their bids for implementing a technical assistance and they are creating a team wherein we are insisting that at least as guided by our gender policy, at least 5% of the total value of the technical assistance should be on gender mainstreaming issues. And they are looking for gender experts. They can use the roster to identify experts and include them as a part of their team.
Thank you to the CTCN. With that, I will close this agenda item. Just to let colleagues know that there is coffee at the back of the room. We will not be having a coffee break. And we'll now be moving on to TEC agenda item 8BIV and joint agenda item 5.4, resource mobilization and partnerships to support implementation of the joint work program. In accordance with paragraph 15 of decision 9 CP28, the COP encouraged the CTCN, its host UNEP, and the UNFCCC Secretariat to collaborate on resource mobilization to ensure effective implementation of the joint work program of the technology mechanism for 2023 to 2027. I would now like to give the floor to the CTCN Secretariat to give us an update. The floor is yours, Rajiv.
The 22nd Advisory Board approved the CTCN resource mobilization and partnership strategy. There were six strategic actions which were defined in the approved partnership in the approved resource mobilization and partnership strategy. The strategic action 6 focused on enhanced TEC-CTCN joint resource mobilization efforts, and in this session, since it's a joint session, we are just going to present the actions taken against strategic action 6. Going into details of what actions were described, there were 4 actions which were described, which is there on the screen, which included discussion with the UNFCCC Secretariat to support the supporting the work of the TEC, the possibility of assigning focal points in each secretariats, discuss with the UNFCCC Secretariat supporting the work of the TEC, the possibility of developing a joint resource mobilization plan, possibility of establishing a joint TEC-CTCN working group, and work with the UNFCCC Secretariat Technology team and the UNFCCC Resource Mobilization Office on modalities of receiving additional funding for the activities of the technology mechanism through the UNFCCC. Next slide, please. A meeting was held between the UNFCCC Secretariat, which comprises of the Secretariat of the TEC and also their resource mobilization expert, and the CTCN. What we are presenting here is a summary of the discussions which happened and the results of it, and also some of the way forward. During the discussion, there were various bottlenecks which were identified, and it was discussed within the UNFCCC Secretariat and communicated to the CTCN, and this is a summary of the discussions. What came out of the meeting was that there has been no successful case of joint resource mobilization between UNFCCC and other entities, and there is no case of joint partnership. Model for joint resource mobilization or joint partnership is difficult due to different processes, criteria, due diligence of the various organizations which are involved. It means that the UNFCCC has a different process, the UNEP has a different process of conducting due diligence. There is a limited human resources and capacities within the UNFCCC Secretariat to support current resource mobilization and partnership activities, means the legal processes, the contracts, etc. It was also pointed out that the resource mobilization and partnership team of the UNFCCC is struggling to find enough resources for supporting UNFCCC Secretariat's own priorities. On transfer of resources through a UN to UN agreements, that is, if the UNFCCC Secretariat gets funding and it wants to transfer the funds to the CTCN or any other UN agency through a UN to UN funding, it would incur heavy administrative costs and legal burdens, and the UNFCCC as of now is not following any such mechanism. Next slide, please. However, CTCN and the TEC jointly define targets to mobilize new partnerships and resources collectively. It was also pointed out that the mandates of the TEC, as decided by the parties in Cancun, do not cover the aspects of resource mobilization. The TEC is not a legal entity on its own, and therefore this provision is not implementable. It was also clarified that this provision was with regards to creating joint partnerships, and it was agreed that the CTCN and the UNFCCC teams will continue discussion on possible ways to enhance collaboration and partnerships, exchange information on organizations and partners who are potentially interested and are able to support each other's areas. A joint call to the parties have been done in the past. It was done by the executive director of UNEP and the executive secretary of UNFCCC. Similar joint calls for asking for voluntary contribution for the technology mechanisms can be made. It has a potential and it has a precedence. We also agreed to regularly meet to enhance coordination and communication, and as a result of that, as you must have seen, it was presented in the TEC, a joint call for partnership for implementation of the joint work program has been issued by the UNFCCC Secretariat and the CTCN together. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. I would now like to give the floor to the UNFCCC Secretariat. Ariesta, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good afternoon, colleagues. As just mentioned by Rajiv, it was also announced yesterday at the TEC meeting. In the UNFCCC website, we have officially launched the joint calls for partnership. It's called Accelerating Technology Development and Transfer through the Joint Work Program of the Technology Mechanism. So this joint call for partnership can be found in the UNFCCC Secretariat under About Us, Partnership, and Current Calls for Partnership. The joint call will stay there for 1 year, and then it's to be determined whether it's going to be extended after the 1 year. So it's basically open call. And we are hoping, although as you have heard from Rajiv, that some of the mechanisms were very difficult to implement due to the legal and administrative challenges, the two secretariat is trying to find a way to still mobilize resource through this, the current call for partnership. So we would encourage the TEC members, the AB members, the network members, the observer who are present here to have a look into this current joint call for partnership and distribute it among your network to help the TEC and CTCN to mobilize resource to implement the joint work program of the technology mechanism. We will also, the two secretariat, continue looking at ways to collaborate, particularly in the aspects of the resource mobilization, by informing each other the potential partnership that could be built with the actors, with the philanthropy foundations, with the private sector, and so on. Thank you very much, Chair. I hand back to you.
Thank you, Ariesta, and I think just to again stress that it's good to know that this call for partnerships has been published on the UNFCCC website, and again, just echoing that message to share this with networks in order to boost this further. I would now like to open the floor for comments from members or observers. Justin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you for the presentations, and I would be remiss to say a huge thank you to everyone who's put so much work into this so far. One of my favorite quotes in life is actually from Rocky, where the trainer says, "It ain't about how many times you get hit, kid. It's how hard you get hit. It's about how many times you get hit and get back up again." And I think we need to keep going, because this is too important to the people we're trying to help to find a way through. So I wholeheartedly support any activities that the two secretariats can do together. You've probably heard the expression, if you want to do something, go alone. If you want to do it faster, do it together. So Ariesta, could I just please ask that we share that link as widely as we possibly can so it gets into the right mailboxes? I think there's also, as we've spoken about before, an opportunity to start engaging either on a project-by-project level with some of these organizations, or otherwise we have to think of other ways right now. For example, increasing pro bono contributions, particularly from, for example, the private sector. If we can find a way that everyone is comfortable doing that, I think we absolutely should. And I think, and I'll go back to the numbers that we saw generated just in terms of getting people's attention and awareness around technology mechanism, TEC and CTCN at the climate COP. If we can do something similar to that at UN General Assembly, which we actually included in the resource mobilization plan, under section 5.2, I think that will also help us. But I certainly don't see this as anything other than a challenge that I'm convinced we should overcome together. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I don't see... Okay. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I'm not sure. This feels a bit like Rocky 6, 7, or 8, perhaps, but here we are. I do want to welcome the work of the two secretariats, as well as stakeholders like Justin and others who have been pushing this particular boulder. It is very important, exceptionally important, and I think this UNFCCC call for partnerships is a very positive development in that regard. We hear loud and clear from the secretariats that there are certain things that cannot be done. Let us continue exploring what can be done and work together, and I think there are many of us in this room and beyond who are prepared to contribute to that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I only see one flag, or two flags, and I'll close the list here. So Annie and then Ambrosia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. thank you very much to everybody who's been working on this. It's a long, hard slog, and we shall get up again. Ariesta, I really heard you when you were talking about everyone here being a great potential participant in getting the word out to all of our networks, and this is very, very true. And I would also note that if, in addition to sharing the language that is available on the website about the call for partnerships, there was specific messaging, a package of information for us as your ambassadors that we can use within our networks, not to be shared with our networks, but for ourselves to make sure that we're all very coherent across the board in what we say to our networks would be really, really appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Annie. Ambrosio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think the announcement for the partnerships gets a bit more weight if there is a chance to actually display the web page on the screen. In a way, we lose a bit of oomph of declaring this information because was disclosed, there was a disclosure on the TEC meeting. But I want to congratulate the efforts because if actually we didn't know about what happened to get there, that actually were a bit of, or a lot of bad news, this in itself could have been received as a really, really, really good news. Like there is an actual effort and there is an effort that's supported by the Secretariat and is displayed at the highest level. And I think we have to acknowledge and recognize that. And of course, share it. On the particular case, and I think this is going into the details, of course, CTCN technical assistance are part of the joint work program, but since this is a bit CTCN specific, might be needed to consider in the CTCN advisory board meeting. But of course, one of the ways, if through the partnerships, through the UNFCCC or UNEP, but other way that might, and I don't know if was considered is that you look for partners that can provide people to search within the results of the TNAs and within the results of the technical assistance by CTCN, good projects that may want to finance as a way to avoid going through the, in a way, the bureaucracy of the UNFCCC and UNEP, and see if there is a way that you can get mobilized direct support to developing countries in a way through a matchmaking function, but by taking upon partners that are willing to do actually that work of reviewing the results of technical assistance requests and TNA. But that's, I guess, for the EV to consider. Thanks.
Fred.
I'll be very brief on this one. First of all, I welcome the presentation from the two secretariats, and I also recognize and appreciate the partnership on resource mobilization, but I also have regrets in that when we created the technology mechanism and we decided to put the CTCN under UNEP as a host, it seems the UNFCCC got a relief that it will no longer be responsible for funding of the CTCN, which is its baby. And unfortunately, loss and damage also borrowed a leaf from the CTCN, and they also decided to create the Santiago network outside the UNFCCC. And it seems in that case, it will also be finding it very difficult, because I had here legal concerns, procedural concerns about the mobilization of resources, the UNEP CTCN with the UNFCCC, and this is really regrettable. I still feel if there's a will, something can be done. UNFCCC created this, the process of UNFCCC created the CTCN and the TEC. It should have a way of supporting resource mobilization for the CTCN, because UNFCCC wants also to jubilate in the positive results of the CTCN. We also report to the COP, which is under the UNFCCC. So I think we can still explore possibilities, the legal, the procedural means of how the UNFCCC can also help together with UNEP and the CTCN to mobilize adequate resources. Otherwise, it should not be an avenue for the UNFCCC to surrender its ownership of the structure that it has created, or also surrendering its position to mobilize resources to support. Otherwise, it's just saying, my son, I'll produce you, you are going to stay with our neighbor, I don't have any more responsibility for you. You'll grow up under that, and I think it's not a very, I'm really wondering what sort of, but that is my regret, but I'm happy with the development, that despite those challenges, we can still come up with proactive ways of partnering to mobilize resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred, and I think, yes, we're definitely moving towards the right direction with this. I know that there were some suggestions, and Annie also asking about a information package or something to assist, so I would just ask the two secretariats to maybe discuss and come back to the members later. So with that, again, as you can see on the screen, if you go to the UNFCCC website, About Us, Partnerships, current calls for partnerships, you'll find this call for partnership. So great to see this happening, and we look forward to future opportunities through this. With that, I will close this agenda item and move to TEC agenda item 8C and joint agenda item 6 on monitoring and evaluation. At the last joint session in September 2023, the TEC and the CTCN Advisory Board created the joint open-ended activity group on the monitoring and evaluation and requested their respective chairs and vice chairs to conduct an analysis of the monitoring and evaluation systems of the bodies and an overall analysis of the joint monitoring and evaluation indicators for the joint work of the two bodies within the aim of satisfying the existing reporting requirements. I would like to give the floor to the representative of the Joint Activity Group on M&E to report on the progress of that activity group had, which will be followed by presentations from the CTCN Secretariat on the NDE survey and joint M&E indicators. So I now hand over to the activity group member.
I think, Chair, if I'm not mistaken, we did not have any volunteers from the activity group at this stage. So it will be a presentation from the Secretariat. And I will go ahead. Could you put the slides up? Great, thank you. Next slide, please. Let me first start by sharing a quick background on this agenda item. So the joint work program of the technology mechanism for the period 2023-2027 was launched at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, as many of you know. At that same time, two mandates were given by the COP regarding, thank you, regarding joint M&E. Yes, that's better. So the first one encourages the TEC and the CTCN to explore the opportunity of developing a common integrated M&E system in designing the joint work program. And the second one requests the TEC and the CTCN to continue to enhance their efforts to monitor and evaluate the impacts of their work, including through identifying new ways to invite feedback from NDEs on the impact of the work of the technology mechanism. So during the same COP, we also concluded the first periodic assessment of the technology mechanism. This assessment looked at both the effectiveness as well as the adequacy of the support that was provided to the technology mechanism. The following year at TEC-CTCN and CTCN AB 22, so last September, during the joint session of the two bodies, the TEC and the CTCN Advisory Board requested the chairs and the vice chair of their bodies to conduct an analysis of the M&E systems of both bodies, as well as an overall analysis of the joint monitoring and evaluation indicators for the joint work of the two bodies. All this with the aim of satisfying the existing reporting requirements. So at that meeting, the TEC and the CTCN-AB agreed to establish an open-ended joint activity group to discuss this matter forward and to present today the analysis and sort of how to take this work forward. So that brings us to where we're at today. Next slide, please. Just some background on the discussions that were held with the activity groups. So at its first meeting, this joint activity group took note of some preliminary inputs from the Secretariat on how to sort of a revised approach for the NDE survey. For those who don't know, the NDE survey is sent out to NDEs by every 2 years to collect inputs from NDEs on the impact of the work of the technology mechanism. The activity group also discussed how to take the work further in terms of sort of M&E, joint M&E, and they agreed on two interconnected areas of work. On the one hand, the activity group suggested to further refine some of the indicators for joint activities that had been already presented, taking into account the comments that we received from all of you at the last joint session. On the other hand, the activity group also requested the Secretariat to conduct an initial mapping of the joint reporting requirements for the technology mechanism to inform all of these discussions. At its second meeting, the activity group requested the Secretariat prepare a background note for today's discussion, which you all received, with information on these proposed joint indicators for the joint activities specifically, while also sort of really highlighting that the existing, existing M&E systems are in place. I think it was highlighting that this work was targeting the joint activities specifically, noting that both the TEC and the CTCM have their respective M&E systems in place. In terms of the proposed approach moving forward, the activity group highlighted, as you can see in the background note, sort of a three-step approach, if you'd like, to take this work forward. As a first step, the analysis, the activity group requested an analysis of the existing M&E systems in place. What are we using today in terms of M&E, including proposed new indicators for joint activities, and this we will take forward today. The activity group also highlighted the need to initiate discussions on the broader M&E processes, including the M&E of the common areas of work and the joint work program as a whole, so really through bridging the existing TEC and CTCM M&E systems. And as a second step, the activity group suggested looking at the joint reporting requirements that the TEC and the CTCN are subject to. In this previous meeting, it was clarified that these reporting requirements would concern sort of requirements that apply to both the TEC and the CTCN at the same time. And finally, the last step, if you'd like, would be to look back at the TEC and CTCN M&E systems, using as a lens these reporting requirements to identify any potential gaps and challenges that could be addressed through the M&E systems. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, just to let you know that today's presentation sort of has three components that we have been discussing in the activity group. First is a presentation on these refined indicators or proposed indicators to assess joint activities. The second part is sort of a presentation of this draft mapping of joint reporting requirements, which was done in the context of the activity group. And finally, we'd like to provide you with some updates with regard to the joint NDE survey that's coming up. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, here for context, as there are many new faces in the room, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what's currently in place with regards to the M&E systems of both bodies under the technology mechanism. So as you know, the joint work program of the technology mechanism is composed of three parts: the TEC rolling work plan, the CTCM program of work, and then what is new in this joint work program are the joint activities and common areas of work for the same period. So with regards to the M&E system specifically, in 2019-2020, the TEC and the CTCN jointly engaged the services of a M&E specialist provided through in-kind support from USAID, and worked together to develop an M&E framework, which included a theory of change, a logical framework, indicators, and accompanying methodologies. All this with the aim of ensuring a coherent approach within the technology mechanism. Building on this, the TEC has its own sort of M&E framework that supports it in measuring progress and implementing its rolling work plan, and the work it undertakes as part of its different work streams. And similarly, the CTCN has its own M&E system for measuring progress in implementing its program of work. At the same time, both the TEC and the CTCN have relied on a joint NDE survey to obtain, as I said, additional inputs from NDEs, really with the aim of sort of assessing the impact of the work of the technology mechanism. When we look at the areas on joint activities and collaboration, that is where we sort of currently see a gap in the sense that we do not have any joint indicators to measure progress in those activities. Yes, so building on the earlier discussions that we've had on this topic, and including at the last joint session, a number of output, outcome, and impact level indicators are proposed to measure specifically the joint work of the TEC and the CTCN, and this again is in response to an identified gap. It also complements the M&E systems that are already in place for the TEC and the CTCN. So here at the output level, the indicators reflect the type of joint activities of the TEC and the CTCN as they are planned for in their joint work program. So these activities and outputs intend to generate the conditions that will then lead to changes observed at the outcome level, which we'll see after. The main assumption here at the output level is that any recommendations, key messages, publications that are produced jointly are adequately disseminated in order for these outputs to then generate outcomes. So proposed output level indicators, and I know we're pressed for time, so I'm not sure I'll go into each indicator, but these include sort of tracking the number of joint policy recommendations, the number of joint publication and joint events that are conducted, as well as tracking any sort of strategic engagements and collaborations that are conducted jointly. And specific tracking also on the uptake or the response rate for the NDE survey, as this has been a sort of an issue that we've been working on, as well as the uptake in the applications to the gender and climate technology roster. Moving to the outcome level, this indicator really seeks to assess the extent to which stakeholders are using the joint TEC and CTCN policy recommendations, the joint publications, and the knowledge products to support NDC ambition and implementation when deploying new and existing climate technologies. So this ambition, so to speak, is really extracted from language used in the joint work program and specifically the focus area for the joint TEC-CTCN activities. Next slide. Moving on here to the impact level, this sort of result statement is taken from both the TEC and the CTCN monitoring and evaluation frameworks in the sense that they share a common aim to facilitate the impact that is sought by the technology framework in Article 10, Paragraph 1 of the Paris Agreement, and that is parties share a long-term vision on the importance of fully realizing technology development and transfer in order to improve resilience to climate change and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So here the proposed indicators to track the number of NDCs that reflect prioritized technologies, including referring to technology planning tools. And I will highlight here that this is of course complemented by sort of impact indicators from the CTCN, for example, that look specifically on anticipated GHG emission reductions resulting from its technical assistance, for example. That brings us to sort of the mapping or this draft mapping of the joint reporting requirements, also sort of an issue that was addressed as part of the activity group. Next slide. Let me, before diving into the mapping itself, I'd just like to share, for those of you, again, who don't know, how the TEC and the CTCN have been reporting jointly to date on the implementation of any joint mandates or any joint activities. So to date, this has been done through what we call the joint annual report submitted to the COP and the CMA each year. And specifically, there is a joint chapter contained within that report. But as we've seen today, both bodies have also used the joint session as opportunities, venues through which to share more systematically feedback on the work of each body. Last year was also the first trial of what we've called the mandates table, which you would have seen has been integrated in the joint annual report for last year. The objective of this mandates table is to offer a more systematic reporting framework to track progress made by the TEC and the CTCN in addressing the different mandates that are given to them. And this now brings me sort of to this more detailed mapping of what we've called sort of joint reporting requirements that was carried out in the context of the joint activity group. So, to start off, we have the COP21 and COP22 sort of mandate for preparing the joint chapter specifically of the joint annual report. And the structure of this joint chapter is detailed in what has been called the updated procedures for preparing the JAR. There have been, after several mandates that have provided guidance on what kind of information is required from the TEC and CTCN to include, for example, in the joint chapter on how the activities and actions under the technology framework have been implemented under the joint work program specifically. Both bodies have also been required to report on how they have responded to the recommendations of the first periodic assessment, for example, in the joint chapter. We also sort of took note of the technology framework as a whole that lays out a series of actions and activities that provide overarching guidance to the technology mechanism, to the TEC and the CTCN. And in that respect, we have seen sort of several decisions that have specifically requested the TEC and the CTCN to align their work, to align their reporting in alignment with the technology framework. We also looked at the first periodic assessment on the effectiveness and adequacy of the support provided to the technology mechanism. So again, this was concluded at COP27, and it led to a series of recommendations against which the TEC and the CTCN should report on. In terms of the inputs, and we have discussed this in the activity group, in terms of the inputs used to carry out the periodic assessment, this was guided by Decision 16 CMA1. On the scope of and modalities for the periodic assessment. So this decision provides, on the one hand, guidance in terms of the scope of what will be addressed to measure the effectiveness of the technology mechanism, and there you can find really sort of the details of that guidance and what has been assessed, what has been looked at to measure, how effective has this been. And as a second point, next slide, sorry. It also looks at the scope of what will be assessed to measure the adequacy of the support provided to the technology mechanism. So there again, under point 2, are a number of issues that are looked at specifically in the periodic assessment. In terms of the types of outputs provided, or inputs rather, provided by the TEC and the CTCN to feed into the periodic assessment, these are both qualitative and quantitative in nature. So there has been interviews as well as documentations used. And finally, still on the periodic assessment, but the decision also provides a non-exhaustive list of the types of sources of information that have been key in sort of providing inputs to the periodic assessment. So here you have the joint annual report as one of those sort of documents that was consulted. And I will finally just move on to the TEC and the CTCN have also sort of been called to provide inputs to the global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. And here we just highlight the types of information sources that were used as inputs from the technology mechanism also to the global stocktake. And I will highlight here the text synthesis report on information on matters related to technology development and transfer, where both bodies provided input in terms of their joint activities. And that sort of concludes my part of the presentation. I will hand it over to Daye for further details on the NDE survey.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taye Om from the CTCN Secretariat. Today, I would like to provide about the updates on the joint biannual NDE survey, which Clarin just mentioned. This is an existing reporting requirement jointly with the TEC, and the joint indicators Clarin just mentioned is something that we are recently developing. So I would like to talk about why it's important first. I think a lot of the parts were already covered by the Clarion very well. So two bodies, technology mechanism, invite NDEs biannually every 2 years since 2020. And we invite NDEs to contribute to the process of monitoring and evaluating the long-term impact. And this is done since 2020, so twice. The first one, 27 NDEs received 27 NDEs who received support from the CTCN has responded, and then in the second survey, 45 NDEs have responded. For us, we consider NDEs a very important part of our network. They are agents for change, and their inputs and reviews from the NDEs allow us to grow, and it's one of the part that we can direct our resources in a better way. So we are very keen to receive a lot of inputs from the technology mechanism survey from NDEs, and it's also very important because it's the part of the periodic assessment of the technology mechanism, which is higher level reporting requirements conducted by the UNFCCC every 5 years. And also in this new cycle, it might also fit into the global stocktake or biannual transparency report. So we consider it as a very crucial tool for our reporting. And last COP, we got a guidance to identify new ways, and also it was discussed already with the AB members to make it more practical and effective. So it's a still very ongoing, but we have discussed with the TEC Secretariat. It's very evolving, so we would appreciate your guidance and inputs after this presentation. We are suggesting here 2 approaches. So first one is tailoring questions for all types of different NDEs. And the questions and the details will be shared further in our AB, but here in the next slide, I will be providing a little more context. Secondly, we would like to improve the communication and dissemination strategy to enhance response rate from the NDEs. So a little bit more about the first approach. So we would in the past we only asked questions about we only ask questions to the NDEs who receive the technical assistance support from us. So that means that there are a lot of different type of NDEs, and their engagement with us are different. For example, some NDEs would receive the TA support from us, but some might financially or human resource-wise contribute to us, or some developing country NDEs are potentially able to receive the support, but only has engaged with us through capacity building events or other workshops. So for those, basically, they didn't find the questions relevant or applicable to them, meaning that the response rate was lower. But this time, we would like to include the more relevant or tailored questions for those groups. For example, non-Annex 1 countries with no TA experience, but who might have engaged with us in other service areas. And the other one for Annex 1 country NDEs who had already contributed or considered as a potential donors. So in the left, in the simple table, it shows the sections that the NDEs were able to answer. And then in the new approach, we would like to include also Annex 1 NDE questions addressing to Annex 1 NDEs and asking a level of awareness on the role of their NDEs, and then also some questions about capacity building engagement and networking engagement. Also, we would like to strengthen the outreach strategy to using the following approaches. Basically, on the first one, we think it's important to communicate the monitoring of progress is a part of the mandatory roles and duties of the NDEs. And also, we will traditionally use NDE fora to engage survey in person when we meet the NDEs. And all the regional CTCN teams or other tech secretariat, we will engage them with the one-on-one communication and follow-up. Also, we would like to offer incentives to encourage survey completion by featuring success stories on the social media or shared understanding that the extent to which NDEs actively share their cases in this survey could facilitate the future support of the CTCN and TEC. Last but not least, TEC and CTCN AB members' influence to encourage the participation would be crucial to us. So we have thought of these ideas, and I would appreciate your guidance and inputs. For the next steps, we would like to translate the survey questions in 3 languages, like in the past, Spanish, English, and French. And then in May, we will implement the survey to collect responses until July. And with the aim to analyze results and findings in JAR cycle. Thank you.
Thank you to the CTN Secretariat team. I believe you'll be projecting one slide, right? Because the Secretariat has requested members to provide some guidance on not only the next steps on the NDE survey, but also regarding the joint monitoring and evaluation indicators for the joint work. So with that, I would like to open the floor for feedback and also just requesting members and observers to be brief and to also respond to the points of guidance requested by the CTCN Secretariat. Ambrosio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will comment first on the ND survey. One of the mandates, as already mentioned, that we have is how we provide technical and logistical support on the NDs. The survey might be an opportunity to get some ideas in that regard, but I think it has to be framed in a really sensitive manner. If we do it wrong, we will generate expectation, and due to a resource of the technology mechanism that generates frustration. So I believe we can do it in a sensitive manner, but it could be a great opportunity to actually explore, well, since we are mandated to provide logistical and technical support, what this might look like. And so that I think that could be part of the survey. On the other part, the work of the activity group, the mandate is how to satisfy the reporting requirements. So in a way, the 3-step proposal, I will put the last step first, because this is about satisfying those reporting requirements, and then, of course, you go down the scale to say, okay, this part of my M&E satisfy this and this and this, and then you cover the reporting requirements, and then you can call it a day in a way. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambrosio. Valeria.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to compliment on gender indicators. So taking into consideration the updated CTCN gender policy and GAP, where the CTCN commits to report on progress made on gender and has set some specific training for improving gender balance among beneficiaries, participants to trainings, and having better gender balance in TNA teams, I will propose to include the following gender targets and indicators in the M&E system, so there can be adequate reporting done. The first one is TEC Gender Focal Point. Ambrosio proposed during TEC-28 meeting to have 100% of TEC products to integrate gender consideration. So can we have an indicator and percentage of TEC knowledge products that integrate gender? Second, target to spend no less than 5% of its funds for gender mainstreaming activities. So the corresponding indicator should be percentage of TA's budget spent on gender. Third, target to increase gender balance in TNA and TEC training teams, minimum of 30%. So the indicator could be a percentage of female members of TNA and technical teams. And lastly, target to have at least 30% female participants, beneficiaries of training and capacity building activities. The indicator will be percentage of female participants in trainings and capacity building activities of the CTCN. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you very much. From our side in the European Commission, very much supporting the development of this joint monitoring and evaluation framework, in particular in relation to the gender indicators and gender disaggregated data. Regarding these indicators, it's of course clear that they only cover the joint activities, which is very understandable and a good first step. In the longer term, we encourage TEC and the CTCN secretariats to see how to streamline and have as common indicators as possible for the activities, but of course recognizing that TEC and CTCN do very different types of work. And on the role of monitoring and evaluation, I made a very similar intervention at the last advisory board meeting, but that for donor countries, monitoring and evaluation is extremely, extremely important. And this relates to the practicalities of how it works when we fund initiatives. So from our side in the EU, there is no budget line that we have to fund UNFCCC or the technology mechanism. So our politicians, they define the set of available funds, and then every time we want to fund TEC and CTCN, we need to go and explain to our management and convince them why the money, the limited money that is available, should go to TEC and CTCN. And the fact that we continue to do that year after year shows that you're doing really good work. But the monitoring and evaluation really gives us the ammunition that we need to be able to continue funding the initiative. And for the joint monitoring and evaluation, also particularly welcome for us from the side of the European Union, especially since it's not only the European Commission that funds, but also Germany, Sweden, Spain, Denmark, and others. So the fact that we can have common indicators makes it a lot easier for groups of donors such as us. And last point, and I'm sure that Clarine and the Secretariat, you're doing this already, but really you need to do advertisement and sell these indicators, especially to donors, that as soon as you have even preliminary discussions with donors that are thinking about giving money in the future, present this great framework that you have and explain that these are the indicators that you have available, and then they can fit that straight into the contracts and the grant procedure and so on. Otherwise, they will invent their own indicators and you will be stuck having to follow them. So really, this is really great work. So really advertise that to all your donors. Thank you.
Thank you. Dietrich?
Yeah, so as a member of the joint activity group, I would also like very much to echo what Christopher just said. So I think it's a really good start that we have, let's say, this joint, the indicators on the joint activities, but actually this is only a very narrow set of focus. So because we just report on the joint activities, which are very important, but we don't report on the overall impact of the technology mechanism and framework. And I think we should, over time, clearly move to having this consistent framework of having, as Christopher pointed out, to have really to show our stakeholders and to give them confidence in what we do as a technology mechanism and framework overall. I think it's extremely important. And with this, basically, I think it is also important that in the activity group, we work out a streamlined reporting process, because I think this will potentially also reduce redundancies between the activities, the separate activities, and basically increase consistency, both in our work and also in the reporting process. I think it will also potentially lead to improved decision-making, better in decision-making. So I would suggest that basically in the activity group, we deal with this. Basically, we look at also joint data, and then maybe have some pilot testing and reporting back on this kind of reporting, and then regular review and adapt this kind of measurement. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I will close the list with Ambrosio and Fred. I don't see any other flags. Ambrosio.
Thank you very much for the floor again. I'm sorry to take the floor again, but I think I'll need to come back a bit longer on the core element that was highlighted. In a way, it's related to the point made by Christopher. When the proposal said we start at the reporting requirements, this is who do we serve? We serve the parties. So what we should care about dedicating on time regarding indicators and monitoring and evaluation and so on, first is what parties has been asked us to do, and the other stuff, yeah, it might be internal stuff for us to see how we're doing, but the most important thing is that we actually report to the mandates, to the parties that are asking us, this is the most important, that is most worthwhile to dedicate our time on. In that line of thinking, some of the monitoring indicators are really operational indicators, number of publications, basically, we're doing our job or we're not doing our job in terms of we're following our plans or not. And I don't care, and I think parties also don't care much either on the number of publications, and I don't care that people financing the technology mechanism care that much at the number of activities, number of publications, because it's an operational element. It's useful to monitor your work, yeah, but it's not the most important thing. And if you look, what are the reporting requirements of the parties? Some of the reporting requirements are pretty much things that you may say, okay, the donors probably find those very interesting because are about the impact of the work, about the estimated emission reductions, about the amount of funds leverage, the support leverage. So parties already are asking us as technology mechanism, and most of that is on the requirements of the periodic assessment, things that are the most important things that we need to answer. And I have a strong feeling that some of those are very strong related to things that the donors also want to see. So the invitation is a bit not thinking that much about the specific or the details of the joint activities. I think actually the secretaries can do that. I don't think it's actually very much worthwhile to dedicate our time of 2 hours and 50 people to look at that. But the invitation is, okay, let's see what does those reporting requirements, work on those as technology mechanism. I think it's very useful that if donors have that and see, that party requirement is actually aligned with what I want, so we do it one time, that's very useful. But I will propose to go for the higher level, and then I don't think we ever need to go into operational details. That can be delegated on the secretariats. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambrosio. Fred?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wish to combine my intervention by considering the submission by Christopher and Ambrosio. First of all, I really value monitoring and evaluation as a very important, informative sort of vehicle. Because when we are here, we are discussing about support and also the application of this support in our countries and the impacts created. And we heard from Christopher that, of course, the results of monitoring and evaluation can also help them in advocacy and mobilization of resources. We do appreciate that. But when we go to the submission by Ambrosio, we are looking at the indicators of our monitoring and evaluation. And here you may not blame anyone, but we have to blame ourselves. The mandate that we gave to the CTCN is facilitative in nature, such that when you look at the indicators, the outcomes, the outputs will be a process output. When you give technical assistance, it is not the end results. You need to go further. And therefore, if we report on the indicators reflecting the technical assistance, it is very difficult to convince some governments to contribute money, because we held workshops, we distributed some advocacy materials and so on. But what we would like to do is, first of all, we need to be proactive. The CTCN provides technical assistance. These technical assistance, some of them don't stop there. they cause other actions on the ground, whereby the NDEs are in position to monitor what has happened to the technical assistance provided by the CTCN. In that case, the NDEs, we need to facilitate them further to follow up on the outcome of this technical assistance on the ground. What impact, what other sort of transformation changes they have caused. So in this case, we are calling for, and you may see me very passionate about the NDE, because I know and I believe that once they are well facilitated, we can get a lot of results. We can improve on the results of technical assistance going into implementation and causing transformational change there. So in this case, if we want really the survey, the NDE survey, to be very useful to us and very relevant, and to report to us tangible results, we need to provide more support to the NDEs. We need to look at the NDEs as change agents, because the mandate we gave to CTCN is not adequate. And if we have to review it, we have to go back to the COP, go through another discussions and the negotiations. When we get it, I don't know when we get it. You know how long it takes to realize that. But in the absence of that process, we can still do something. Let us make our indicators sharp, reflecting impacts, reflecting transformational change. And to do that, we need to follow up on the technical assistance. Who is to follow that? It is the NDEs. And how do we do it? We facilitate them to do that work. We get the report from them through the monitoring and evaluation process, and with the sharp indicators that we shall have identified. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I think then, hearing the comments, and obviously just from Fred's intervention as well, the urgency of this NDE survey to be a catalyst, I would then propose whether we can get agreement that the activity group will work on the NDE survey and the secretariats will disseminate it, hopefully the questions by between Q2 to Q3 to the NDEs, so that we can receive the information from them in a timely manner. And then on the joint indicators, I understand that these have been developed after guidance from the joint activity group, and I do know that there have been some additional considerations, like from Valeria proposed some additional targets and Ambrosio.
Yes, and the proposal was, what I proposed was a bit radically different, and it was start with the mandates and then you go to indicators. I don't think it doesn't make any sense to talk about in the indicator if it's not in the context of the objective of the activity group, that is responding to the mandates. So whatever is done should be, first, because that was the mandate to activity group, and second, because mainly the point of where this is coming from. This serves a mandate, perfect, we have the indicator for it. The activity group might consider, for example, the gender action plan as an overarching guidance to all the constituent bodies, and there is a specific activity there that can become an indicator to be considered. But I think it's really important that we go from the top to the bottom and not the other way around. Thanks.
Thank you. I think then, Ambrosio, based on your previous um, statements as well. We'll let the secretariats deal with the operational indicators and the implementation of that, and then the activity group will look into the impact indicators and the reporting requirements that come with that. So we would propose that as the way forward, and then for the NDE survey that the secretariats will disseminate between Q2 to Q3. Okay, then I don't see any objections, so this is how we will move forward with this. Now we will move on to the next agenda item, TEC agenda item 8D and joint agenda item 7 on the dates and venue of the next meeting. I would like to inform you that the 29th meeting of the TEC is tentatively proposed from 17th to 20th September 2024, and the joint session of the TEC and the CTCN on the 20th of September 2024, and the 24th meeting of the CTCN advisory body from the 23rd to the 25th of September 2024 to take place in Bonn. I invite TEC and CTCN advisory board members to take note of the tentative dates for the next meetings. Justin.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a point that in the resource mobilization strategy under 5.2, we have specifically stated that we're going to try and do outreach around the UN General Assembly and the UNFCCC COP. And the dates that you've just outlined actually overlap directly with the UN General Assembly this year.
Thanks, Justin. And I understand that there is a clash in those dates. So we will consult, the chairs will consult with our respective bodies, and we will request the secretariats to look for alternate options based on the availability of different rooms, because we are trying to have it in Bonn to cater to the cost implications and try and make this as cost effective as possible. So we will check, and the secretariats will look for options. Intersessionally, yeah. Seeing no other comments, we will move on to the next agenda item. So now let's turn to discussion on agenda item 9A of the TEC agenda and joint agenda item 8.1, potential collaboration with the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub. Decision 19 CMA4 requested the UNFCCC Secretariat to ensure that the relevant activities of the UNFCCC Global Innovation Hub contribute to supporting the implementation of the joint work program of the technology mechanism as guided by the technology framework to avoid duplication and fragmentation of efforts in the area of innovation. I would like to give the floor to the representative Nitin of the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub to present potential areas for collaboration with the technology mechanism. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nitin Arora. I'm the project manager for UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub. And I'm here to give you this presentation on the potential collaboration between the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub and the technology mechanism, as requested by the CMA through its decision 19, that the activities of UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub should support the joint work program of the technology mechanism.
Hi, Nitin. Sorry to interrupt. Could you move to presentation mode?
Sorry, just a second. I hope it's clear now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let me just first give you an introduction about UGIH, which was a specialized project that was conceptualized under the mitigation division of UNFCCC Secretariat. And it was launched at COP26 in Glasgow with a one-fold vision of contributing to accelerating and upscaling the effective use of innovation to serve the many people and the planet through the achievement of two goals. So the first goal of UGIH is to contribute to accelerating the upscale deployment of existing transformative climate and sustainability solution. And the goal 2 is to contribute to accelerating the development of new transformative climate and sustainability solutions. And that is to respond to the current demand, which is arising from the cities and the demand that has come from global stocktake. So these are the 4 working spaces of UGIH. So we have systemic innovation workshops that is being organized by UGIH with our partners. Last year, we organized 4 systemic innovation workshops in different parts of the world, alongside the subsidiary body sessions in Bonn and also one in UN alongside the Climate Week in New York. There was another one which was organized alongside MENA Climate Week in Riyadh, and the last one was in Dubai with the COP. The outcomes of the systemic innovation workshops are actually move us to the second working space, which is global innovation projects, which arise after the outcome of as an outcome of the systemic innovation workshops. We have currently 3 global innovation projects on which we are working. Then we have the UGIH COP Dialogue, which is a space in which we organize sessions as side events at the COP at the pavilion of UGIH, which we have been organizing since Glasgow. And then we have the last space, which is UGIH Digital Platform, which is kind of similar to what WIPO is doing, but is more comprehensive in a sense that it does not only have a repository of technological solutions, but solutions such as policy initiatives, policy solutions, challenges from the cities, and solutions from related to other areas such as solutions from academias, and as well as solutions from faith who can contribute to the climate and sustainability goals. So based on our discussion with the team supporting the tech, we have developed a concept note that has also been published as part of the agenda for this meeting, in which we have identified 4 potential areas for collaboration between UGIH and technology mechanism. The first one is supporting the upscaled technology uptake, in which we can invite the TEC-CTCN to co-create systemic innovation workshop challenges related to identification of innovative solutions needed for the development, transfer, and upscale deployment of climate and sustainability technologies. Second is providing space to TEC and CTCN at UGH COP29 dialogue to showcase success stories and lessons learned in preparing and implementing TAPs. Just to remind you that we have invited TEC and CTCN at COP28 also, and there were two sessions which were organized at COP28 at UGH Pavilion, focusing on areas related to the work of TEC and CTCN. Then we have facilitating substantive input from UGI's experts. So as part of UGH, we have network of experts that are dealing in different areas. And we at UGH can facilitate this inputs from the UGH expert to the documents that are prepared by TEC and CTCN also. We can also collaborate by inviting strategic stakeholders from UGH network to participate in the planned TEC-CTCN thematic workshops and events. And also we can collaborate by sharing key messages related to technology framework, as well as the TEC-CTCN Joint Work Program in different forums and events in which we are either participating or organizing. Second potential area of collaboration is in the thematic area of digitalization, on which TEC and CTCN also works. So we can collaborate with UGH partner on using digital technologies for climate policy making, including the end-to-end digitalization of the activity cycle using IoT technologies such as distributed ledger technology, AI, smart contracts, and connectivity. We can also co-organize events such as those at UGH COP Pavilion that bring together different stakeholders such as cities and tech companies to explore how digitalization can support the climate and sustainability agenda. We can also collaborate in facilitating substantive inputs from UGH experts, again in this space, on the documents which are produced by the technology mechanisms. For example, the planned concept note for a technical paper on AI for climate action, including risks and challenges on the use of AI at TEC. We can also contribute by inviting speakers from UGI's network to speak at some of the TEC-CTCN and digital technologies related events. So that's the second thematic area in which we look forward for have collaboration. The third thematic area is on the issue of building and infrastructure. And we can collaborate here by facilitating substantive inputs from UGI's experts to documents that are produced by the technology mechanism related to buildings and infrastructure. We can also invite the TEC and CTCN members to bring to the UGH SIW challenges related to the development and deployment of low carbon buildings and infrastructure. On the topic of buildings and infrastructure, we can also facilitate the exchange of knowledge and information, for example, by co-organizing a thematic dialogue at COP29 that can focus on innovative green buildings and infrastructure technologies and other innovations such as financial needs for their upscale development and deployment. So the fourth potential area of collaboration is under the thematic area of water, energy, food systems, in which we can invite experts such as members of UGI's high-level working group on nutrition and health to provide substantive support in the form of inputs to knowledge products prepared by TEC-CTCN on the water, energy, food systems nexus. We can also co-organize a session at COP29 on water, energy, food systems with TEC and CTCN and other partners of UGIH, such as Food and Agriculture Organization and World Food Programme. So UGIH, through its planned systemic innovation workshops, can facilitate the exchange of knowledge and information on how to transition the nutrition and health value chain with the objective of achieving SDG 2, and as constrained alignments with the climate goals, the goal of biodiversity and land regeneration. This will require work on the nexus of agriculture, water, food and security, energy and climate. So these are the four potential areas for collaboration, and that's all from my side, Chair, for taking any questions from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitin, for your presentation. Now I would like to open the floor for comments. Annie?
Thank you very much. This is impressive work from our colleague in this hub. So the hub is it's a secretariat initiative, and the TEC and the CTCN are constituted bodies that receive direction, and there was direction at COP27, there was guidance specifically to the hub in terms of supporting the technology mechanism implementation of the joint work plan. So for the hub to support the bodies. And so with this in mind, and gratefully noting that there was a note at the very start of the presentation that the aim is to avoid duplication and fragmentation, that perhaps we think about, and this is a proposal that I'm making for our group to debate, roll this hub into the technology mechanism, perhaps within the CTCN directly, to ensure that all the firepower is coordinated. Because what I've seen and heard today is all about fragmentation, where there's very few resources around, and we want to make sure that it's all aimed at implementing the joint work program as per the parties' specific direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annie. Fred?
I was hoping to have a peaceful evening. But I think I'm getting sad. First of all, you wake up in the morning, and your dad has brought someone you don't know and put in the family, say, this is part of us, and collaborate and work with this person. You don't know whether he's a brother, or is a distant relative, and they say, you work with the person. Indeed, the CTCN and the TEC were mandated. They were instituted and mandated. Then the global hub, the Global Innovation Hub, we welcome collaboration. We welcome institutions that bring in value, that bring in resources. But here we have Global Innovation Hub. Its genesis brings worries. Its presence, looking at the intended activities for the Global Innovation Hub, is not very different from what we have been discussing here in the context of the TEC and the CTCN. Why don't we just streamline this operation that the Global Innovation Hub joins the TEC and the CTCN either as a member of the network, and then, or maybe providing advice of some nature to the technology mechanism in ad hoc terms, but not having it a body standing in there, not coming with the resources, but using the available resources which the TEC and the CTCN would have used effectively, and then it could be a way of blaming the CTCN or the TEC that you are not performing, you are incompetent, so we are bringing another institution that can deliver, and let the institution show you that they are more efficient than you. So I'm completely lost on this, and I need guidance. Someone can soothe my mind, because really I'm worried about this development. It's the same thing that we're talking about, the advisory group. When you have already another body doing the same thing, why do you bring another one? This is undermining the institution that you have created. I don't know whether we all see this, but I would like to raise my case there. I think I've communicated. But if the members here so agree, for us we shall move with it, but I think it will undermine our productivity and our outputs. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Justin.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in on the back of what Annie had said. Very recently, I attended the Copenhagen Climate Ministerial on behalf of business and industry, and one of the key red threads through that conversation was collaboration and trying to find ways of synergizing and avoiding duplication. And I'm feeling the same way as Fred. I'm awfully confused about what I've just heard, so I apologize for my ignorance if I've missed something, but I'm just hearing a lot of duplication around what the mandated bodies are already doing. I've just looked online, and apparently this setup is organized through something called the Open Earth Foundation out of California as a non-profit, which seems to run lots of other things. I think there's also a question of transparency around how this has actually come about. I mean, we also have an expression in English, we say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I'm a bit worried that this may well be the case. I don't think anyone is intentionally doing anything other than trying to drive climate action, but I do think we intentionally need to work together far more. It's extremely difficult from a private sector perspective when there are a myriad of initiatives out there and you're trying to focus your effort and energies, and I think we also need to be part of that process as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Owen.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that Annie, Fred, and Justin have said, except only one point in terms of what Fred said. I'm not sure whether or not it's practical for the hub to be a CTCN network member. I'm not sure about the structure that Justin referred to. My understanding, and obviously the representatives of the hub can clarify this, but my understanding is that it's an initiative that was launched by the Secretariat, I think in Glasgow, as far as I know, without any formal party mandate at all. And when it was first announced in Glasgow, I remember being surprised that I saw the Secretariat launching a new innovation initiative outside the technology mechanism, and it was described as going to be an online platform to share information on innovation. And I expressed my concerns to the Secretariat back then, and I think it's only evolved further in its own direction, and I do share the concern that it's fragmenting the work of the Secretariat and potentially, while they've raised significant money, it seems, I'm concerned that it does risk diverting attention and resources away from the CTCN. I give them credit for the extent in which they've raised money and established partnerships, but I think partly because they haven't had the responsibility of administering a detailed mandate that the TEC and CTCN have. So I've spoken to many potential partners and funders who said, yes, we're working with the Secretariat. When I describe the TEC and CTCN, and they say, really? I didn't know that. And they say, yes, we're working with the hub. So I really think if we can bring the hub in to the TEC or CTCN, we'll strengthen the effectiveness of both, and we won't dilute our efforts to implement the technology work program that has been negotiated so carefully through these bodies and been fully endorsed by the COP. And the only COP mandate referring to the hub is one that I was involved in negotiating with some other members here, and the intention of that mandate was to give guidance to the Secretariat that the hub should support the implementation of the joint work program. And here is the attempt to help do that, but I share the thoughts by Annie, Fred, and Justin, that it just doesn't seem to make sense to have this separate innovation program outside of the TEC and CTCN. Maybe some of the work can be better directed to support the implementation of the joint work program, but it's been 2 years since we passed that decision. And when you look at the UNFCCC website, there's a section on topics, and this is where an outsider would start to explore how the UNFCCC works if they're interested in partnerships. And when you hit the link on technology, you go to TT-Clear. But there's a separate link on innovation, which is an integral element of our work and the technology framework and the joint work program. But when you hit the link on innovation, you go to the hub. So people who are interested in innovation may not learn about the technology mechanism, will end up working with the hub. So I do think it's a real issue, and I do think it makes a lot of sense to really bring the work of the hub, to the extent that it continues, directly working with the TEC and CTCN to make sure the resources are directly supporting the joint work program.
Thank you, Owen. I now give the floor to Dietrim. I don't see any other flags, so after this, Ambrosio, and then we'll let the secretary, the hub, come in and respond. So Dietrim.
Yeah, I also want to echo what colleagues have said here. So I think we have the 5 core themes of the technology framework, and it starts with innovation as the first one. So I think I would echo that. I mean, for any outsider, it would be confusing if we have, let's say, or let's say different operating entities or something. Not operating entities, but if we have entities or operating not in collaboration and operating not consistently together. Yeah, so I would also encourage very much that we have a very consistent collaboration, at least this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dietrich. Ambrosio?
Thank you very much for the floor, Mr. Chair. I actually have reviewed each of the activities proposed, but maybe for simplicity, I just give you the short version of it, so I don't go by one way, because there were around 20, between 15 and 20 proposed. I would like to reflect also on our colleagues. First, as in capacity as TEC member, of course, and TEC members are in personal capacity. If some of you have attended the negotiations, you might know what under other hat, what I haven't said. But in this context, as a TEC member, I think a member of the technology mechanism, the spirit should be a bit of we try to collaborate as much as possible while it's useful to the work and the programs that we have in place. With that in mind, when I review, actually saw a lot of the what was offered to collaborate is actually actionable. I had questions like only in 3 points, but to keep it very simple, as I said, and not going by one, I think in most of the things that at least relate to the work of the TEC, so this is about publication and events and so on, this can be decided that on general matters, the chairs of the TEC and the CTCN decide how to engage with the Global Innovation Hub, and the matters that are specifically related to stream of work, the respective colleagues might decide if they want to invite the Global Innovation Hub and see how they collaborate. I think that can be a simple approach for this. Thanks. And of course, I think this is important. I think we still need to appreciate that there is an effort from the side of the Global Innovation Hub to collaborate with the technology mechanism. I think that also we need to say that. So that's appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambrosio. And now we have Masamba on the call virtually. So I would let him come in and maybe address some of the questions and the concerns that have been raised. But I also just want to note, Nitin, your screen is still being shared. But over to you, Masamba.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon.
Your audio isn't that clear, Masamba.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to all of you. Very pleased to have this opportunity to interact with you and hopefully to be able to address some of the concerns that have been raised. I would like to start upfront by reinforcing what was said by Ambrosio. We are not in competition with the TEC. We are not in competition with the CTCN, and we are deeply looking forward to actually collaborating and supporting the implementation of the joint work program of the technology mechanism. Let me clarify. So I heard a lot of things like duplication. We need to avoid duplication. I would like to say upfront that our scope of work does not duplicate the scope of work for the TEC-CTCN. The Global Innovation Hub is an initiative that has been launched in close collaboration with cities. Our work focuses on cities. What we have said is, okay, although our work focuses mainly on supporting cities, we will be keen to use our skill, our knowledge, our network, our resources to support the TEC and the CTCN where it is required. But it's out of the scope of our work. But if you tell us This is something that we invite the Global Innovation Hub to intervene. We will be happy to do it, but unless it is requested by you, we will work on things that are of nature completely different from what you are working on. Second, when we are saying innovation, we do not mean only technology innovation. We also mean policy innovation, financial innovation, innovative business model. We have developed actually and published an innovative financial instrument that is combining, integrating the green bond market and the carbon market. We have developed this. It has been tested by the Bank for International Settlement and some other bank, and currently it is being applied on the ground. So I would like to clarify upfront that when we are saying innovation, it's not just about technology innovation, it goes beyond technology innovation. We are talking about innovative art solutions to support climate and sustainability. We are talking about innovative products from the culture and creative industry, innovative policy, and so and so. Now, when it comes to, we do not want to restrict our approach to innovation only to address technology. So when it comes to innovative technology, and based on your request, if you tell us, we would like to leverage the resource of the Global Innovation Hub to support the joint work program of the technology mechanism on technology innovation on scope A and B, C. If we have the expertise, the resources, and the means to do it, we'll be doing it. So I just would like to clarify that aspect so that we close this debate. We are not replicating what we are doing. We are not duplicating what we are doing. But we will be very keen to support your work. Second thing, so just as I have mentioned, the focus is on cities, and we are working very closely with the Global Covenant of Mayor. We are working with ICLE. We are working with the Urban Transition Mechanism, which is an initiative of the European Commission on cities. This is the focus of our work. And what we are doing is we are helping cities translate their vision of the future that they would like to build into challenge and innovation project. And around this innovation project, we bring not only people that can provide technology solution, but also people that can bring innovative financial solution, innovative business model, innovative policy instrument. And this is all these things that are integrated to form a cluster and respond to the need of the cities. So we are working currently with several cities on very specific projects, like project related to urban mobility, and how can we use digital technology from space for urban planning and for site selection so that we can build a 15-minute city where most of the product and services are available at walking or biking distance. I don't think that there is any overlap on what we are doing, but again, we will be eager to support the TEC and the CTCN. Now, on this issue of finance, there also, we do not see any competition. The entities that are supporting the Global Innovation Hub, the money that they are providing to the Global Innovation Hub is ring fence. These are entities, our partner are really, let's say, committed to the vision, the mission, the work program, and the strategy of the Global Innovation Hub. They are putting their money on our work because of that, and they will not like to put their money somewhere else. So the TEC and the CTCN has invited the Global Innovation Hub to fundraise for these entities. We have responded saying that we are not a fundraising entity. We can help on substantive issue. We can use our resources like our pavilion at COP to provide space for you to showcase the work that we are doing. We can give you space at our systemic innovation workshop. When our digital platform will be ready, we can provide space to the TEC and the CTCN to use it and showcase whatever they consider is required. We are happy to join whatever event that we are organizing, engage with you, provide input. We are not in competition. So I really would like to clarify that we are looking forward to collaborate. So somebody mentioned Open Earth Foundation as organization behind the Global Innovation Hub.
Hi, Masamba. Sorry to interrupt, but we are running short on time. We are quite behind on time as well. So if you could please wrap up.
Yeah. So Open Earth Foundation is not. Sorry. Is one partner among a broad range of partners of the Global Innovation Hub. We have more than 100 partners. Open Earth Foundation is only one of them. So they are contributing most of the time by providing expert input and also sometimes limited amount of financial resources, but they are not the one behind the Global Innovation Hub. So I will stop there, and if needed be, I can further elaborate, but I really would like to be clear on this aspect. There is no duplication and there is no competition, at least from our side.
Okay, thank you, Masamba, for the responses. I think with that, for just a way forward, I think what we'll propose is that the secretariats continue to discuss how to refine the potential collaboration. I think we do have to acknowledge the various concerns raised by members, and I think that needs to be factored in. So I don't think, as it stands, we can move forward at this stage. So I recognize Ambrosio wants to come in.
Thank you very much, Chair. I propose to keep it simple. So on general matters, up to the chairs, whatever they want to do. But if there's something specific on specific topics, up to the colleagues. Of course, the colleagues have to ask the chairs of the TEC because that's on the rule of procedure of the colleagues. But that was the proposal. So also giving a bit of agency to a different work stream. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. I think just factoring in Ambrosio's previous intervention and multiple interventions from members in the session, I think in the relevant activity groups, we can see whether those activity groups see benefit in the areas of collaboration. So we'll leave it to them for areas like digitalization and the water energy nexus. Regarding there was multiple members as well who stated that they potentially see the hub being under the technology mechanism, either the TEC or the CTCN. So I would request the secretariats to continue coordination on this and to come back to us at the next session with a bit more clarity on potential ways to that the members' concerns can be addressed in this regard. So I will leave that as the way forward. And I don't see any flags, so we will move on to the next item. Now let us turn to discussion on agenda item 9B of the TEC agenda and joint agenda item 8.2. Decision 18 CP 27 paragraph 6 invited the TEC and the CTCN to strengthen their systematic engagement with the national designated entities, NDEs, including through regional forums for NDEs, to increase the reach and impact of the work of the technology mechanism on policies and practices on the ground. I would like to give the floor to the CTCN Secretariat to provide an update on the NDE forum, including the future steps and resource implications. Over to the CTCN Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. The CTCN Secretariat organizes ND forum for each of the regions. These forums were organized in conjunction with the regional climate weeks. In 2024, the UNFCCC Secretariat do not have any confirmed plans of organizing regional climate weeks. And in this situation, the CTCN is going ahead to organize the ND forums in an independent manner. And that is the reason in the agenda, in the earlier agenda item in the earlier agenda item 5.2, we presented the capacity building program, which is going to be organized in conjunction with the NDE forum. So my presentation and my intervention is very short here. Means we plan to organize the NDE forum for the Asia and the Pacific, which is going to be in the first week of July for the Asia region and second week of July for the Pacific region. A capacity building program would be back-to-back organized with the ND forums to conserve resources and cost. And it is likely the Africa ND forum is going to be organized in Nairobi. Again, as you know, UNEP, we have UNEP headquarters in Nairobi. There are facilities available which are available to us at a subsidized cost, and therefore, in order to subsidize the cost, Nairobi is the most appropriate option. For Latin America and the Caribbean region, it is likely that the UNFCCC may organize a climate week, and if that happens, we are still waiting for news from the UNFCCC Secretariat. If that happens, we are going to organize along with the regional climate week, or else we have to look at other options, which includes organizing the ND forum in Panama, again, where the regional office of UNEP is based. It would have a little resource implication, but we have not been able to calculate how much resource implication would be because we still are not, we don't have a confirmed city where the LAC climate week or the LAC ND forum would be organized. Definitely resource-wise, there would be some additional efforts on the required from the Secretariat side in terms of procurement of venues, etc. So this is our plan for this year to organize 3 NDE forums, each 3 NDE forums for Asia Pacific, for Latin America and the Caribbean, and for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. For this item, then I understand that the TEC and the CTCN Advisory Board would agree to take note on the information that's been provided, including the dates, and for some forums that there have not been dates allocated yet. I don't see any other flags, so we will move on to the. Oh, sorry, Monique.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. In the event that the physical NDE forum wouldn't take place, is there a contingency plan to switch that over to an online forum, or to have some of the modules that was planned to be discussed in person, be it in a virtual setting, or is it either a physical or nothing?
We are very confident to organize the physical meetings, and we are planning that way, and we are going to proceed that way. It has been mentioned in the annual operating plan, which was approved by the board last year, and therefore we are planning exactly according to that. So we can confirm that a physical face-to-face meeting is being planned.
Thank you. So we will close that item. So we have actually been very effective that we have now come ahead of time. So thank you all for that. I just wanted to note that we did have some flags still up on the AI for climate action session. So some of the observers didn't have the chance to come in at the time. I have Sarah, Alistair, and David, but was there anyone else who wanted to come in for the AI for climate action? Yeah. Oh, she's not here. She's gone. Okay, so Alistair, do you want to come in?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Actually, I would like to echo the comments made by the Vice Chair and the Moroccan representative, if I remember correctly, before lunch hour. I hope you can hear me better this way. Yeah, and actually, I would like to raise the point about the peak of inflated expectations on artificial intelligence right now that I can see it. The autonomy and complexity of artificial intelligence actually require a clear philosophy of development or philosophic approach to risk assessment and management, rather than the need to jump towards a methodology or use cases to start with. So under this philosophy, I would raise just one of the key examples called human-centric AI, which include data justice, ethics, etc. But what is the most important manifestation here is the inclusive local stakeholder engagement in the design of any AI digital application that can push up the local uptake rates by 7 times according to some research findings off the top of my head now. And it will lead to a much longer term developmental impacts. And the second most important manifestation on the human-centric AI development is HITL, human in the loop. It is a concept where human judgment and AI recommendations have to work together in tandem. And they enhance decision-making processes while keeping humans accountable and in control at the same time. It means that we shouldn't completely rely on the results generated by AI to make the decisions. Let me give you an example that might be even more applicable to developing countries. Assume that AI can get disaster response outcome wrong in developing countries because it's very, very likely that they could misinterpret data due to lack of local context. And at this point, I would also like to echo some other colleagues who mentioned the point of indigenous knowledge, which are very difficult to codify in a data format to be digested by any artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms. And because this is traditional knowledge deeply rooted in human experience, culture, and oral tradition, which are not easily quantifiable. So the implication here is that we definitely need to rethink whether we have already a clear philosophy focusing on human-centric AI before we get too excited about what AI can be perceived to achieve for us in terms of climate actions. So in the interest of time, just conclude my comments here, but I'm happy to talk further during the reception with colleagues who are interested. Thank you.
Thank you. David, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is David Baguma. My comments were on the draft work plan for the initiative of 2024-2027. My comment is I expected here the work plan to include themes in the area of priorities and goals that would be identified for the period, including objectives related to technology transfer, capacity building, and innovation in climate-related technologies. At the same time, the work plan could have included the evaluation in the alignment of the proposed work plan with overarching goals and mandate of the CTCN and TEC, ensuring a coherent and the synergies with other initiatives and activities under the technology mechanism. Also, another comment I need to provide at the time on the work plan was that in the area of activities and deliverables of the work plan, as an observer, I would have expected to hear about opportunities for collaboration, partnership, and resource mobilization to support the implementation of the work plan. And in the area of monitoring and evaluation, as an observer on the draft work plan, I could expect to hear about the identity of the identify the opportunities for stakeholders engagement, feedback mechanisms to ensure transparency and mechanism and continuous improvement in the implementation of the initiative strategies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Colleagues, so before adjourning the session and proceeding with the closure of the 28th meeting of the TEC, allow me and my fellow CTCN Advisory Board Chair to share some final remarks from the discussions. So I'll hand over to Owen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to attempt to re-summarize the conclusions that we reached on the many different agenda items. I just want to thank everyone here who's participated today, those of you who were here for the previous days of the TEC meeting, and I'd say it's been a real pleasure. I know both bodies have more or less a 10-year history, and the development of this joint work program was really a significant change in the way both bodies have operated, and that sometimes creates a struggle and makes things a little bit more complicated, but I think almost all of us, when we step back, see the logic in how the two bodies are really complementing each other and coordinating the work more than ever, and how powerful that can be. And we all feel a sense of urgency for not just the status quo, but really figuring out how we can take better advantage of the opportunity that we have by being part of this convention, Paris Agreement process. And really the world is looking to us to help accelerate the change that we need as rapidly as possible and at the scale that's possible. We all bring very different perspectives and different constituencies, but I think today was an example of really the UN system at its best, bringing together such a diverse range of of people and organizations to really work together in a truly collaborative spirit. And the work program, certainly is still very broad, yet it does have, I think, a good strategic focus to make sure that we're using our time and energy, as effectively as possible together to do what we all need to know needs to be done in terms of better developing and deploying technologies to accelerate climate action. So our work is hardly over, but I really feel like today was a very successful day and helping us continue to move forward more and more effectively every time that we meet and work together. And just finally, just want to say, it's not just about coming to the meetings and participating in the meetings. Think of yourselves as an important element of this technology community in between the meetings. You're all part of this community, spokespeople, advocates, champions for either the body you're in or both bodies, and please stay in touch with each other, with the secretariats, so we can keep the momentum going in between the meetings to really implement all these decisions and aspects of the work plan that we've just agreed on today. And I'll just close by reminding everyone, because I think the time has shifted a little bit. I'm not sure if everybody saw the invitation, but we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the CTCN this evening, and the reception is starting at 6:30, and it's in this building, in the Pacific Ocean Room, Finger 9. That is this building, right? It's not going to be hard to find, right?
Specific, where everyone has
6:15.
So not the main dining room, but the other room in the back, right? Yeah. So those of you who were at the TEC meeting where we were eating sort of across from the cafeteria, it won't be hard to find. It's well marked if you just get up to the main lobby. I'm getting different guidance now. Some people are telling me 6:15. Some people are telling me 6:30. Rajiv, what time are we aiming for?
6:15, the ambassadors and the diplomats are going to start arriving at.
Maybe here, I'll let Rajiv explain the details, logistics. So, but it's not actually dinner, but maybe some people will go out for dinner afterwards. But I hope everyone can stay, both to hear the remarks and just to mingle, to continue the conversation, getting to know each other informally, and also looking forward to working with all of you who are staying for the next 3 days next week for the CTCN Advisory Board. Those of you who are not on the advisory board or going home, you can still observe virtually, or if you're in town, you can come and observe in person. So thank you again to everyone for your great collaborative spirit and great teamwork that we saw today.
The reception is being organized on the occasion of the 10th years of operation of the CTCN. It is at the Pacific Lounge. I see many of the colleagues, the last couple of, Atlantic Lounge. I have seen, you'll find it on the first floor. It's on the delegates and the other invitees, which includes network member, personnel from diplomatic corps. We have given them a time of 6:15. They'll start arriving at 6:15, 6:30 sharp. We are going to start the reception, and which would continue up to 8 o'clock. It's a cocktail reception where you'll hear the views of the journey of how CTCN began, how CTCN and what we are now, and also the future vision of what we are looking at. So it is going to start at 6:30.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thanks everyone for your interventions. I know the Secretariat has an announcement regarding badges, so I'll hand over to the Secretariat.
Thank you. Please, for the TEC members who are not staying for the next week, please return the badges to Gabriela. She's here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maya. So yeah, TEC member. Oh, sorry, Annie.
I'm sorry, it's unorthodox. You've already done your closing. For the reception, I understand that there's invitees from the non-traditional potential funder gang that we're so wanting to court. I don't know if it would be appropriate for now to divulge some of those that have accepted so that all of us can maybe do what we need to do to support this endeavor so that we're not stuck in the moment. I don't know, just give advance notice to some of our ambassadors, for example. Just a question here.
As per as per the confirmation list, we have confirmation from the Ambassador of Canada. We have confirmation from the Third Secretary of Poland. We have confirmation from the U.S. Economic Assistance
section of the embassy.
Yeah, economic section of the embassy. We have confirmation from the Deputy Ambassador of the Swiss embassy. We have confirmation from the Deputy Ambassador of Embassy of Spain. And we have some confirmation from the private sector. We have confirmation from the private sector. We have two confirmation from the network members of the CTCN, which are based in Denmark. And we have also confirmation from the Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ms. Karin Paulson is going to come and address the meeting. And we have some video remarks by the Executive Director of UNEP. We have executive remarks from the UNFCCC Secretariat and the Commissioner of the European Commission. So, in addition to what I have mentioned, we have also confirmation from the ambassador from Australia, South Korea, and Italy.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. So distinguished members, now time for item 11, closure of the 28th meeting of the TEC. So distinguished members and observers, we have now reached the end of our 28th meeting of the Technology Executive Committee. We've had a very productive meeting this week and a joint session with the CTCN Advisory Board colleagues today, and I thank you for being very efficient in time. We are literally at the time that we were supposed to end, which is 5:30, so very well done. And I think Erwin summed it up perfectly. I won't add anything, but just to say, I do hope to see engagement intersessionally as well, and not just at the next meeting that we have. So let me thank all TEC members for your contribution, the observers for your comments, feedback, and the Secretariat for your support. We wouldn't be here today without it. So I wish the CTCN Advisory Board colleagues fruitful and successful meetings next week. The 28th meeting of the Technology Executive Committee is now closed. Thank you.